Yes.
Yeah. You know what we should do is we should just go live and share it live. And if I title it Democratic Debates, remember how many hits we got? And I just like, go to this link. I thought about that earlier. Like going live before I lost an hour of time.
Yeah.
Just totally.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr.
All right.
Your response?
I speak for just about everyone watching when I say I would trust anyone on this stage much more than I would trust our current president on matters of criminal justice.
Liberty after
We
dark.
cannot tear each other down. We have to
Are they
focus on
live?
beating Donald Trump in 2020.
You're a lot better at this
I
than
want
I
to
am.
share a story that a prison guard, a corrections officer in New Hampshire said to me. He said we should pay people
I
to
just
stay
try
out
not
of
to
jail
overcomplicate
because
it
we
is all.
spend so much when they're behind
I
bars.
try to make my startup
Right now,
as simple
we
as
think we're saving
possible.
money. We just end up spending the money in much more dark and punitive ways. We should put money directly into people's hands, certainly when they come out of prison, but before they go to prison.
Thank you, Mr. Ian. I want to bring in Senator Gillibrand. You heard earlier Mayor de Blasio respond to Secretary Castro on the question of why the police officer who killed Eric Gardner is still on the NYPD. Was that response adequate? Please respond.
No, he should be fired. He should be fired now.
Christian channel. Jeannie.
I sat down with Eric Garner's mother, and I can tell you, when you've lost your son, when he begged for breath, when you know because you have a video, when you know he said, I can't breathe so many times over and over again, when you know he used an illegal chokehold, that person should be fired. And as I was, if I was the mayor, I'd fire him. But as president, I would make sure that we had a full investigation, that the report would be made public, and if I wasn't satisfied, we would have a consent decree.
I want to bring in Senator Harris now. Senator Harris, you have also been quite critical of Vice President Biden's policies on race, specifically on the issue of busing. Senator Harris now, in the 1970s, having benefited from busing when you were a young child. Vice President Biden says that your current position on busing, you're opposed to federally mandated busing, that position is the same as his position. Is he right?
That is simply false. And let's be very clear about this. When Vice President Biden was in the United States Senate working with segregationists to oppose busing, which was the vehicle by which we would integrate America's public schools.
They keep talking about this, but
Had
it's
I
not.
been in the United States Senate at that time, I would have been completely on the other side of the aisle. And let's be clear about this. Had those segregationists their way, I would not be a member of the United States Senate, Cory Booker would not be a member of the United States Senate, and Barack Obama would not have been in a position to nominate him to the title he now holds. And so, on that issue, we could not be more apart, which is that the Vice President has still failed to acknowledge that it was wrong to take the position that he took at that time. Now, I would like to also talk about this conversation about Eric Gardner, because I
Whoops.
too met with his mother.
Accidentally
And one
pushed
of the things that we've got to be clear about is that this president of the United States,
All right, we're
Donald
good.
Trump, while he has been in office, has quietly been allowing the United States Department of Justice to shut down consent
So much
decrees,
quieter on
to
that. Yeah,
stop
I don't know
pattern
what's up,
practice
man. I
investigations.
can't
On
make
that
anything
case,
louder
we
than it
also know
already
that the
is.
Civil Rights Division,
we
this
got
is
chats
important,
coming up now?
the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice said charges should have been filed, but this United States Department of Justice
Aaron found us.
usurped,
Oh, no.
and I believe it is because
Celeste
that
found us.
president did not want those charges to go forward, and they overrode a decision by the Civil Rights Division of the United
Thank you,
States
Senator.
Department of Justice. Under my administration, the Civil
Thank you,
Rights
Senator.
Division will reign, and there will
Vice
be
President
independent
Biden, Vice
investigations.
President Biden, I want to give you a chance to respond to what Senator Harris just
Yeah,
said.
everywhere.
I don't know if
Senator
you did
Harris
already.
was the Attorney
No, I
General
haven't
for
done
8
it.
years in the state of California.
All my volumes maxed
There were
out.
two
The
of the
CNN
most
website's
segregated
just
school
really
districts
quiet,
in
and I don't
the
have a mixer app
in
to
Los
boost them.
Angeles and in San Francisco. And she did not like.
So I
didn't
tried
see
to
a
turn
single
everything
solitary
down
time
so that you can
she
turn your
brought a
volume
case
up
against
without
them
blowing
to
your ears
segregate them.
out.
Secondly, she also is in a situation where she had a police department when she was there that in fact
Yes, he
was
did.
abusing people's
Aaron,
rights.
yes, he
And
did.
the fact was that
That's how
she
slow
in fact
criminal
was
justice
told by her
works.
own people that her own staff that she should do something about and disclose to defense attorneys like me that you
Yeah,
in
Ariane,
fact,
he's just
had
very
been-
still.
the police officer did
Oh, yeah, I
something
was looking at my
that did
phone.
not give you information would exculpate your client. She didn't do that. She never did it. And so what happened? Along came a federal judge and said, enough, and he freed
Thank you.
1,000
Wait,
of
what
these
was that word?
people. If you doubt me, Google
Your volume isn't
1,000
max,
prisoners
yeah.
freed, Kamala Harris.
Thank you, Vice President
I
Biden.
can't. I
Senator
can't
Harris,
really
your
fix that.
response.
We were having the same issue yesterday. There's no way for me to
Is
boost
simply
the audio
not
anymore.
True. And as
I don't know
Attorney
why
General
this
of
website is so
California,
quiet,
where I ran the
but-
second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of
'Cause,
Justice,
yeah, it's
and I'm
maxed out
proud of
on
the work
here.
we did, work that has received national recognition for what has
I
been
will
the
say
important
everything
work
that
of
she's saying.
reforming a criminal justice
Second
system
only to the-
and cleaning up the consequences of the bills that
Messing me
you
up, man.
passed when you were in the United States Senate for decades. It was the work of creating one of the first in the nation initiatives around re-entering former offenders and getting them jobs and
Oh.
counseling.
Senator.
I did the work as Attorney General of putting body
Senator.
cameras on special
I want to
agents
bring
in
in
the state of
Congresswoman.
California, and I'm proud of that
I
work.
want to bring in Congresswoman Gabbard. Congresswoman
last
Gabbard,
there.
you took issue with Senator
dribbled.
Harris confronting Vice President
Google
Biden
that.
at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the
I love
conversation
this.
back
Now that I
to
have
the broken criminal
streaming
justice
software closed, I
system
can do everything.
that is
Oh, wow, we got
disproportionately
32 people.
negatively
That's cool.
impacting black and brown people all
Wow.
across this country.
I added
today.
one tag
Now,
debate, and
Senator
that probably
Harris
did it.
says she's proud of her record
Oh,
as a
tags.
prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president,
That
but
was
I'm deeply
brilliant.
concerned about this record. There are too many examples to
teach me
cite, but
XSplit.
she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she
This
was
is
asked if
this is
she
a
ever
very fair
smoked
criticism.
marijuana.
She has a very
She
dark
blocked
history
evidence.
as a prosecutor and as a
Blocked
DA.
evidence that would have freed
Oh,
an
really?
innocent man
Yes.
from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep
Thank you,
cash bail
Congresswoman.
system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
That was when people in California were stamping license plates without pay, too.
As the elected Attorney
ripping her
General of
up.
California, I did the work of significantly reforming
Wow.
the criminal justice system of a state
She's
of
like, I
40
don't know,
million
my
people,
asshole's still all
which became a
gaping now.
national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor,
wanna
but
be able to see
actually
the-
doing the
Can I
work
see?
of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about re-entering former offenders and getting them counseling. It
Thank
is
you.
why,
It's
and
a
because I
vape
know
bill.
that criminal justice
Thank
system
you,
is so
Senator.
broken, that I am an advocate for what
Thank
we
you,
need
Senator.
to do to
Your-
not
your
only
time is up.
decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman
Yeah, I think that's
Gabbard
fair.
back in. Your
I mean,
response?
obviously,
The
I'm
bottom
for
line is, Senator
decriminalization
Harris, when
fully,
you were in a
but
position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that.
55.
And the people who suffered under your
57.
reign as prosecutor owe,
Scotty,
you owe them an
there's
apology.
you're almost
Senator
certainly
Harris.
right. He looks like he's going to be doing pretty well as an incumbent.
My entire career,
we'll
I
see,
have been
I
opposed,
suppose.
personally opposed to the death penalty, and that has never changed.
Oh, I meant the
And I
senator.
dare anybody who is in a position to make that decision,
man,
to
dude, you
face
did this
the
way better
people
than I
I
did.
have faced, to say I will not seek the
63,
death penalty.
66.
That is my background. That is my work. I am proud of it. I think you can judge people by when they are under fire, and it's not about some fancy opinion
Who's
on a
Bill Burr's
stage,
here?
or when they're in the position to actually make the
Finally.
decision. What do they do? When I was in the position of having to decide whether or not to seek a death penalty on cases I prosecuted, I made a
doesn't matter.
very
Yeah, I did.
difficult decision that was not popular to not seek the death penalty. History shows that, and I am proud of those decisions.
Senator Harris, thank you very much. Senator Bennett, a question for you. Why are you the best candidate to heal the racial divide that exists in this country today?
Oh,
which
this
has been
poor guy.
stoked by the president's racist rhetoric?
Yeah, first of all, the president's racist
Vaping
rhetoric
that KY
would be
jelly
enough
flavor.
grounds for
It's my
everybody
favorite
in this
flavor.
country to vote him out of office. That one thing alone should be enough.
Well, then you could vote for any of you,
Don,
apparently.
I
That's
want
not
to
a good
answer
argument.
your question by tagging on the conversation we were just having. This is the fourth debate that we have had, and the second time that we have been debating what people did 50 years ago with busing, when our schools are as segregated today as they were 50 years ago. We need a conversation about what's happening now.
Okay, I'm gonna
And
need
when
a
there's
I'm gonna
group
need
of
some
kids in this
stats for
country
that
don't get
because that is
equal through no
that's a
fault of their own,
claim.
and another group does, equal is not equal. And we've got a group of K-12 schools that are good because families can spend $1 million, and you've got the Detroit public schools that are as segregated as they were. Equal is not equal.
Nope.
And let me tell you something else, Don. I believe you can draw a straight line from slavery through Jim Crow, through the banking and the redlining to the mass
This guy's lighting it up.
incarceration that we were talking about on this stage a few minutes ago. But you know what other line I can draw? 88% of the people in our prisons dropped out of high school.
There's a direct
Let's
link.
fix our school system, and maybe we could
Senator-
fix the prison pipeline that we have.
Thank you, Senator Bennett.
That's a
Governor
true
Inslee,
statistic.
what's
There's a
your
direct
response?
link between education and
Governor Inslee,
likelihood
please
to
respond.
wind up in prison, which is
You
kind
know,
of,
wow.
I approach this question with
But why are they
humility
dropping out of high school?
because
for a lot of different
I have not
reasons. Most of it's
experienced
income
what
related.
Many Americans have. I've never been a black teenager pulled over in a white neighborhood. I've never been a woman talked over in a meeting. I've never been an LGBT
Yeah, stay in
member
school, kids, for
subject
real.
to a slur. And so I have believed I have
Or
an
don't.
added
Pick one and
responsibility,
stick with
a
it.
double responsibility to deal with racial disparity. And we've talked
Don't
on the
go
way
to
we
jail.
do it, including ending the school to prison pipeline in my state. But I want to say this, and this is a common error, that every single senator on this stage, as much as I respect them all, they all have an enormous error which is going to prevent our party from making any progressive progress in the United States. And it is this. We are all going to work like the Dickens to get more Democrats elected to the Senate, right? We are going to do that.
See,
And
this,
I hope
the
we're
Senate
gonna
race is
succeed.
going to be the hardest
But if
race
we
for the
get a
Democrats to win
majority
this
in the
year.
US
They are
Senate,
more likely to win the presidency than they are
Because of the
to take
position
the
of these
Senate.
senators, not a damn thing's going to get done. And I'll tell you why. With all their
So you're
good
thinking they
intentions,
won't get
and I know
both?
they're very sincere and passionate, and I respect them enormously. But because they embrace this
Yeah,
anti-juvenile,
player, there's nothing wrong with getting a trade if that's how you want to do it.
Mitch McConnell is
Yeah,
going to run
nothing at all.
the
Pick a
U.S.
path.
Senate,
Yeah.
even if we take a
Pursue it.
majority.
Yeah.
We got to get rid of the filibuster so we can
Thank
make
you, Governor.
progress.
Mr. Yang,
Ooh, getting rid of
Mr.
filibusters.
Yang, why are you the best
That's an
candidate
interesting-
to heal the racial divide in America? Your response.
That's a
I spent 7
multi-hundred
years
year
running a nonprofit
tradition.
that helped create thousands of jobs, including hundreds right here in Detroit, as well
Yang
as
time.
Baltimore, Cleveland, New Orleans. And I saw that the racial disparities are much, much
Yang
worse
gang.
than I'd ever imagined. They're even worse still. A study just came out that projected the average African-American median net worth will be 0 by 2053. So you have to ask yourself, how is that possible? It's possible because we're in the midst of the greatest economic transformation in our history. Artificial intelligence is coming. It's going to displace hundreds of thousands of call center workers, truck drivers, the most common job in 29 states, including this one. And you know who suffers most in a natural disaster? It's people of color, people who have lower levels of capital and education and resources.
Chianti.
So what are we going to do about it? We should just go back to the writings
Box
of Martin
wine.
Luther King, who in 1967, his book Chaos Our Community said, we
When
need
you
a
drink a lot.
guaranteed minimum income in the United States of America.
And you're on a
That is the most
budget.
effective
Yeah.
way for us to address racial inequality in a genuine way and give every American a
doesn't
chance in
wear
the
ties.
21st century economy.
So to be
Mr.
fair
Yang,
to
thank you
Yang,
very much.
to be fair to
Secretary
Yang, if
Castro,
there was any industry that's
After the
in direct
president's
threat
racist tweets attacking
of AI,
Baltimore
it's
and Congressman Elijah
transportation.
Cummings, the mayor of
That's
Baltimore
probably the
slammed
most
tweets and said
likely.
to the
Oh,
president,
yeah.
Oh.
and I quote here, help us.
But,
And
I
it's-
mean, how many
Send the
jobs is
resources
that?
that we
It's
need
our
to
largest
rebuild America.
work sector,
So what
our
would you do
largest
for
labor
Baltimore and
sector.
other cities that need help?
Really?
First of all,
I didn't know that.
the president is a racist.
I did not know that.
And that was just one more
But-
example of it.
I think the odds
We know
of
that whether it's
transportation
Baltimore or cities like
being
Detroit,
completely
they have-
eclipsed are
they're
a little bit
tremendously
overblown.
rich in history and
Yeah.
culture and also in possibility. Here's what I would do if I'm president. Number one, I would invest
It's
in
not
tremendous
manufacturing.
educational
Pretty sure it's
opportunity.
transportation.
Invest in universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds. Invest in
Christian. He
improving
knows what
K
he's
through
talking
12
about.
education and also making higher
Just like to make
education
fun of
available
people.
to everyone through tuition-free public state universities,
yeah.
community colleges,
people,
and job training and
politicians.
certification
Comedy relief
programs.
over in the
I would
corner here.
follow up on
Yeah.
the work that I did at HUD. We passed the most sweeping rule to further desegregate our communities
86,
in the
man.
United States.
That's
This Trump
exciting.
administration set that back. I would put that back in order. I would also invest in housing that is affordable because folks know
Thinking, man,
that
you
the
tag-
rent
you
is
tag
going
your
through the
stuff right,
roof.
you're gonna do
And we
good on
need to make
YouTube.
sure that you don't have to get out of
Make sure
West
everybody
Baltimore
subscribes to his
or
channel,
inner city
catch more
Detroit or the west side of San
stuff
Antonio
like this.
or
Yeah.
anywhere
Liberty
if
After
you want to
Dark.
reach your American dream. I
Hit
want
that
you to be able to
subscribe button.
accomplish it in your great neighborhood where you are.
Thank you, Secretary
Nicotine,
Castro.
bro.
Senator Joe
Oh,
Biden,
yeah.
what's your
Sports fan.
response?
So
That was the name sports fan.
I don't
These are going
believe that
quick.
it's the responsibility of Corey and Kamala to
You can go to
be the only voice
CNN.com
that
if you
takes
want to
on
watch the debate
issues
without
of
commentary.
institutional
Channel if
racism,
you want to get a
systemic
clean-
racism in our
clean
country.
stream of the.
I think as a white woman of privilege who is a U.S. Senator running for President of the United States, it is also my responsibility
Yeah, player, I only got to read part of your
lift up
comment,
those
but
voices
for the
that
most
aren't
part,
being
I
listened
agree.
to. And I can
There's
talk
a-
to those white women in the suburbs that voted for
there's
Trump and
definitely a
explain
lot
to them
of,
what white privilege actually is. That when their
misinformation
son
when it comes
is walking
to
down the
Trump's
street with a bag of
racism,
M&Ms
as
in
they
his
call it.
pocket, wearing a hoodie, his whiteness
But
is
I'm not
what
saying
protects
he's a
him from
saint
not being
either.
shot.
So
There's so many other reasons to wear
When their
just
child
low-hanging
has a
fruit.
car that breaks
Sports
down,
fan. Only you guys
and
can make
knocks on
CNN look
someone's door
appealing.
for help,
Thanks.
and the door opens and the help is given, it's his whiteness that protects him from being shot. That is what white privilege in America is
You
today.
go.
And so my responsibility is to not only lift up those stories, but explain to communities across America, like I did in Youngstown, Ohio, to a young
Bill,
mother.
I agree. The debate
that
is a
this
joke,
all
but I
of
think
our
it's important to
responsibilities, and that together we
stay
can
on
make our
top of
community
what
stronger.
they're talking
Thank
about.
you, Senator Gillibrand.
Right now, they're talking about nothing,
Let's now
which is why I'm
turn
not
to
really
the
listening
issue
to
of
them
the
that
climate
much.
crisis. The United Nations says the world
Bunch of
needs to
wah
cut
wah.
all carbon emissions by 2050 or
Wait, who
risk
is that lady?
facing disastrous
Who's
consequences.
that lady?
Governor Inslee, many of your fellow
Where am
Democratic
I? How did I
candidates
get
say climate change is the biggest existential
Holy beer
threat
cans.
facing the country. You, though,
From the other
are
night.
calling
Oh,
it
yeah.
the #1 priority in your
Ajax,
campaign.
I
What
don't
do you
really
know
take it
that the others
seriously,
don't?
but you have
Well, I know
we have
the
to understand the fact that there's a
firsthand
chance
impact
that
of
one of these
climate
people could
change
become
on
president.
Americans across the country already.
And then we got to
The
negotiate
family
that.
who I saw with their
That new reality.
aluminum home, now just a pile of molten aluminum.
Yeah,
They
it's kind of
lost
high, see,
everything
Roxy.
in the paradise
And either way is fine.
of
I just
fires.
we're
The
streaming this for
nonprofit
the
in
commentary,
Davenport,
so.
Iowa, that was washed
But I do
away
kind of want to
in the
listen to
flood.
this a little bit.
We have to act now. Look, climate change is not a singular issue. It is all the issues that we Democrats care about.
UFOs
It
for
is
all.
health. It is national security. It is our economy. And we know this. Middle ground solutions,
we're back to climate
like the
change
Vice
again.
President has proposed,
This is where I
or
kind of zone
sort
out.
of middling, average-sized things are not going to save us. Too little, too late
We're going
is
to
too
manipulate
dangerous.
the climate of the
And we have to have a bold plan, and mine has been called the gold standard. Now,
We need to tax
also
it.
Oh,
need
he
to
calls
embed
it the gold
environmental
standard.
justice.
That's
I was
interesting.
in zip code 48217 in the Detroit neighborhood
Triggered
the other
words.
day, right next to an oil refinery where the kids have asthma and they have cancer clusters. And after talking to these folks, I believe this. It doesn't matter what your zip code
Thank you,
is. It
Governor.
doesn't matter what your color is. You ought to have clean
Thank
air and
you,
clean
Governor.
water in America. That's
Vice
what I
President
believe.
Biden, I'd like to get you to respond.
I mean,
Governor
inner
Inslee just said
cities
that
will
your
always
plan is
have
middling.
worse pollution
There's
just
no
because of
middle ground about
population
my
density.
plan. The fact of the
Yeah.
matter is, I call for the immediate action to be
KY
taken.
jelly vaping,
First of
you
all,
know it.
one of the things that we're responsible for 15%
Later,
of all the
sports.
pollution in the country. He's right about how it affects people, and it affects neighborhoods, particularly
No,
poor
we're
neighborhoods.
drunks,
but here's
dude.
the deal.
Get it straight.
In that area, there's also
Asshole.
another piece. 85% of it is something I helped negotiate, and that is the Paris Climate Accord. I would immediately rejoin that Paris Accord. I would make sure that we up the ante, which it calls for. I would be able to bring those leaders together who I know. I'd convene them in the White House like we did in the nuclear summit, and I would raise the standard.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
I think
also
Yang
invest
will have an interesting
$400
2024 bid.
billion
Thank you,
I just don't see
in
him getting anywhere
research
this
for
year.
New alternatives to
Yeah, he's
deal with
setting some
climate
groundwork
change,
Mr. Yang,
and that's
your
better
response.
bigger than any other person.
The important number in Vice President Biden's remarks just now is that the United States is only
Sports
15%
fan,
of
so
global
cool.
emissions. We like to act as if we're 100%, but the truth is, even
Hey,
if we
Aaron's
were
one
to
of the
curb our emissions
OGs, so-
dramatically, the Earth is still going to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
warmer. And we can see it around us this summer. The last 4 years have been the 4 warmest years in recorded history. This is going to be a tough truth, but we are too late. We are 10 years too late. We need to do
Yeah,
everything
again,
we
player,
can
that's
to
a good-
start
that's-
moving the climate in the right
That's a
direction.
fair
but we also
criticism,
need to
is
start
that there was
moving our
nothing
people to
binding
higher
about the
ground.
agreement.
And the best way to
And
do
most
that
of
is
the
to put
countries that
economic
signed it
resources into your hands so you can
haven't
protect
even come
yourself and
close
your
to
families.
setting
I was challenged by
Thank
the
you,
Vice
Senator.
the correct
President.
path
Maybe you
to
heard
meet
on
the
this for a
standards.
moment.
So
Go ahead,
We're,
Governor.
we're
Thank
the
you
only
very
ones
much.
that acted like it meant
Look,
something.
we have these
And then
deadlines
we
are set by
failed
science. Mr. Vice
like it's a
President,
big
your
deal.
argument is not with me, it's with science. And unfortunately, your plan is just too late. The
Oh, it's a
science tells us
respectable
we
commie.
have to get off coal in
commie?
10 years. Your plan does not do that.
If you want to go watch the debate, you can watch it on CNN.com for free.
Yep. 15.
This is for
The plan
commentary.
simply does not do that. I've heard you say that
Otherwise
we need
you're
a
hanging out.
realistic plan.
Yeah.
Here's what I
No, I
believe.
didn't say that.
Here's what I believe. I believe
Ma'am, I hate when that happens.
survival is realistic, and that's the kind of plan we need.
Things get
And
out of
that's the kind I
control.
have.
My plan calls for
Somehow your
500,000
tank gets
charging
attached to
stations
the
around the
unit
country.
here.
So by 2030,
Well,
we're
we're gonna have to
all
roll with
electric
this.
vehicles. My plan calls for making sure that we have $400 billion
He's looking at the wrong
investments in
person.
technology to learn how to contain what we're doing, creating 10 million new
Hold
jobs.
on.
I didn't
We will
see it,
double
Data.
offshore wind.
$400
We will
billion
end any
investment.
subsidies for coal or any other fossil
Data, I've
fuel.
never seen
but
an
we have
episode
to
of
also
Game of
engage
Thrones.
the world while we're doing it. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time.
I'm
Thank
okay
you,
with
Mr. Vice
cutting
President.
coal
Just
and
to
oil
clarify,
subsidies
would there
because
be
I don't
any
like
place
any
for fossil
subsidies.
fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?
for president.
No,
Wow.
we would work it out. We would make
Bold
sure it's
move, Cotton.
eliminated and no more
how it works out
subsidies
for
for either one of those.
Take it easy,
Either
Bill.
Any
Hope you
fossil
enjoyed it.
fuel.
We cannot
Thank you,
work it
Ariane.
out. We cannot work this out. The time is up. Our house is on fire. We have to stop using
Bill.
coal in 10 years. And we need
Dude,
a
you broke
president to
100.
do it or it won't get done.
That's
Get
right.
off coal.
We're
Save
on to
this
age
country and the
sex
planet.
language now.
That's
That's
what
right.
I'm saying.
Senator Harris, your response?
I mean, I have to agree with
You've
Governor
got
Inslee,
mail.
and I'm going to just paraphrase
Show
one of your
Bob's and
great sayings,
Vagine.
Governor, which is we currently have a president in the White House who
Yep.
obviously
Chris
does
Ray,
not understand
Biden
the
is having
science.
a
He's
very
been
hard
pushing
time
science
today.
fiction instead of science fact. The guy thinks that wind turbines cause cancer, but what in fact they cause is jobs.
So I'm
and
just
the
following
reality is
Christian's
that
lead. So
I
this-
would
this
take
lady's
any
tearing it
Democrat
up.
on this stage
Richard
over
Head.
the current president of the United States who is
love it,
rolling
though.
it back
Richard?
to our collective
Richard
peril.
Head.
We must have
I
and adopt
know.
a Green New Deal. On day one as president,
you.
I would re-enter us in the Paris
Thank you,
Agreement
Senator.
and put in place so we would be carbon neutral by 2030.
Thank you, Senator. I want to talk about that with Senator
Good job,
Gillibrand. You
bro.
are co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, which
She is
includes
such a sitcom mom.
the
though.
guarantee of
She is
a
something.
job with medical leave,
She's married to
paid
some fat guy.
vacations, and retirement
big
security
douche.
for everyone in America. Explain how that's realistic.
Every stream I go
So
to keeps
the
getting
first
shut
thing
down.
that I'm gonna
We'll see.
do when
This
I'm
is fair
president
use, so
is I'm gonna Clorox the
because
Oval
it's we're adding our
Office.
commentary to it.
Fair
The
use,
second
we're
thing I'm
talking
going
over
to
it.
do
We're
Yeah.
gonna talk over it to get shut
is
down.
I will re-engage
So if you want to watch
on
it, watch
global
it on
climate
CNN.
change.
Otherwise, we're going to talk
And
over it.
I will not only sign the Paris Global Climate
Got blurry
Accords,
there
but I
for
will
me.
lead a worldwide conversation about the urgency of this crisis. The greatest threat to humanity is
You guys are
global
brilliant
climate
with the
change.
fair
I
use
visited
scheme.
a family in Iowa who
I mean, it worked on,
You
well,
would
it worked
enter
in
her
post
home,
on
Fran
Facebook.
Parr,
We did the
they
entire,
tossed
most of the
her
stream yesterday
refrigerator
here, and it
upend.
worked
All
fine.
the furniture
So
was broken,
Yeah.
all the dishes
Yeah,
were broken,
Facebook
and mud was
Facebook was
everywhere.
like, no.
That is the impact of severe
Zuckerberg's
weather right
scared,
now
man. He's
on
like,
families' lives.
don't call me in front
and so
of
the
Congress
truth is,
again.
we need a robust
Just shut down your
solution.
stream.
When John
Oh,
F. Kennedy said,
Rich,
I want to
she
put
has
a man
four
on the moon
eyebrows.
next-
I
in
just
the
see
next
that.
10 years, not
She
because
has
it's
deep
easy,
eye
but
arches.
because
It
it's
almost looks
hard.
like a second
He
eye
knew
or
it was going to
eyebrow.
be a measure of our innovation,
I see
our
it now, yeah.
success, our ability to galvanize
I can't
worldwide
unsee it.
competition. He wanted to have
That's
a race
hilarious.
with Russia. Why
I'm
not
okay
have a
with it.
green
Sorry, I
energy
just-
race with China?
I have a hard time
Why not
listening and
have
trying
clean
to
air and clean water for
care
all
about
Americans?
what she's talking
Why
about.
not rebuild our
Hey, you focus
infrastructure?
on listening
Why
and we'll
not
just talk
actually
over it.
invest in green jobs? That's what the Green New Deal is about.
No,
Not
she's
only
talking
would I
about the
pass
Green
it,
New
but I will
Deal,
put a
and
price on
it's
carbon.
pretty
Make
obvious that
market
the Green New
forces
Deal
help.
is
Thank you,
not going to
Senator
be
Congresswoman Gabbard.
anything
You are
that's going to be
not a
supported.
co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. Please respond.
Oh, first of all, this is personal. You can imagine I grew up in
Oh, a
Hawaii,
price
which
on
is
carbon.
the
There
most
it is.
remote island chain
Tax
in the
it.
world. So for us, growing up there,
Tax it.
protecting our environment was not a political issue. It's a way of life. It's part of our culture. It's part
Ooh,
of
it's a
who
way
we
of
are.
life,
This is why,
protecting the
as a member
environment.
of Congress, long before there was ever a Green New Deal, I
Michael
introduced
Tulsi's
the
the
most
only Dem I
ambitious
even think of
climate
voting
change
for. I wouldn't vote for it
legislation
because of her
ever in
policy on
Congress,
guns,
called
along
the
with
Off
multiple
Fossil
other
Fuels
things.
Act, that actually laid out an actionable plan to take us from where we are today to transition off of
Refreshes.
fossil fuels
Refreshes.
and invest in green renewable energy, invest in workforce training, invest in the kinds of infrastructure that
sharper.
we need to
Bill,
deal with
they
the
said if
problems
they
and
legalized
challenges
weed,
that
they could
climate
maybe
is
win.
posing
There's a
to
couple
us
people who
today.
talked about that. I think
Thank
it
you,
was Cory
Congresswoman.
Booker was
Senator
one of them.
Booker, what's your response?
Okay.
Is the job guarantee
She
in
is
the
pretty
Green
hot.
New Deal realistic?
I just want to take, first of all, a step back and say that I agree wholeheartedly with Governor Inslee. It's one of the reasons why Greenpeace ranks me and him at the top of this entire field of their candidates on
that's
climate.
Close. Second, but close. You're just close.
I want to say very clearly.
Sorry, that was good. That was good.
I'll try harder. Look, The reason why is
Don't
because,
make
first
it
of all, this
crazy
problem
on
didn't
you.
start yesterday. Science didn't become a reality yesterday. This has been going
Well,
on
see,
for
that's,
years. There was another
player real
president
quick. That's
that
the
would
problem
not
with
join an international
with
accord. Then it was
climate
the
change
Kyoto
policy
Accords.
is
I was
that these are things
mayor
that are going to
then,
take
and I stood up in
decades
national
to
leadership,
fix. If you
joining
actually
with
want
other
to fix
mayors
those
say
problems, like if that's
climate
a goal,
change is not
they
a
take
separate
decades.
issue.
It's not
It must
something
be
we can
the
really
issue
just
and the
do
lens
tomorrow.
with which
But
you view
I
every
understand
issue. Nobody should get
the desire.
applause for rejoining the Paris Climate Accords. That is kindergarten.
I love Corey.
We
He's
have to
just
go
a
to far
jolly-looking
advance and make
lunatic.
sure that everything from our
Spartacus,
trade
man.
deals, everything from the billions of dollars we spend to foreign
language,
aid,
everything.
everything
Fun.
must be sublimated
I'm not gonna
to the
vote for
challenge
anybody,
and the
but-
crisis that is existential, which
He's
is
fun to
dealing
watch.
with the climate threat. And yes, the majority of this problem is outside the United States. But the only way we're going to deal with this
Thank
is if
you.
the United States leads.
Thank you, Senator. Mayor de Blasio, your administration has come under fire after hundreds of children living in New York City public housing tested positive for elevated levels of lead. As you know, we're not far from Flint, Michigan, where residents
Can we all
are
just agree
still
that Bill de
dealing with
Blasio
the
is a joke? Like,
consequences
if
of
nothing
having lead in
else,
their
like, this is
drinking
one of
water.
like the
You're doing it
worst
to-
How
leaders
can
on
you
the
assure the
stage.
people of
And
Flint
that's
Also,
and across the
doing a
nation
debate.
that
Get a
you are the
haircut,
right
bro.
person to handle
What's going on with your
such
neck
a
there?
problem?
We have a huge
Like, I
problem
understand.
that's
I was doing the
decades
stream. I shoulda
old
got a
in New York,
haircut.
but here's what we've done about it. We've
I'm just doing the
declared
stream.
the eradication of
president.
all lead, literally ending the notion of
Looks
lead
like a rooster.
poisoning once
Thing's
and for
neck
all as
hair.
the goal of our
It's just-
administration, and we're
He's
doing
like got a
something about it.
semi-mullet
Lead
going
poisoning
on.
has gone down
Yes,
90%
Arthur.
since
The B.
2005, and we're going to literally bring it down to zero.
B. Arthur
Because
of
we're
this
going to go into every
debate.
place, buildings, schools, public
Arthur's
housing.
cool.
Yeah,
and
Michael,
take
not
out
even them's
that
like
lead,
it's because
remediate
he has
that
just a
lead
really
once and for all,
bad
and that
track
needs to be
record with
done
New
all
York.
over this country. Now, the federal government used to not take
He's one of the
any
lowest polling. He has
responsibility
one of the
for our
lowest
public housing.
donations.
For
He'll be
decades,
out
they've been
by the next
disinvesting
debate.
in the public housing that was supposed to be a federal responsibility. That's part of why we have this lead crisis
Did
to
he
begin
break
with.
into this
But I'll
debate?
tell you what you do when you're actually in charge of something. I'm in charge of the largest city in
You
this nation.
suck at it.
You do not
You
accept
suck
the
at
status
it,
quo.
dude.
You fix it.
I love the little comment
And
at the
so we
bottom.
are
They're
going
supposed to
into
be talking
every
about drinking
one
water.
of
What the
those
hell is he
apartments
talking
to
about?
make sure those children and those families are safe. And then we are going to eradicate that lead once and for all. And there should be a federal mandate to do the same for Flint, for Detroit,
Someone
for
call
every
security.
place in this country.
Thank you,
it
Mr.
can
Mayor.
be done.
Wait,
Thank you,
he's
Mr. Mayor.
breaking into
Secretary
apartments?
Castro, why are you the right candidate
He's going
to
into
solve
every
this
single
problem?
apartment.
Please respond.
Well, because people don't have to wonder what I would do. I've actually
Kinda
done
bold.
it. I was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development when Flint had its water crisis. I went to Flint. We did what we could to help folks get water filters, and then we didn't stop there. We improved the standard of how we deal with
he just looks
elevated
like
blood lead levels in children. A
This
lot of
guy's a
Americans don't
biology
know that this is still a major problem out there. I was back in Flint about 6
guy
weeks
that-
ago, and I released a plan to invest $50 billion so that we remove lead as a major public health threat. We need
He's
to
got a
do it, we
random
can do
picture.
it, and I will do it.
Thank you,
Madam
Secretary
President.
Castro.
May I get in on
Donald
this?
Trump won independence
No
here in
soul.
Michigan
Stole mine.
by 16 percentage points, which was critical
No,
to
Flint
Donald
is not
Trump
a
winning the
success story.
state's
Flint
16
is a
electoral votes.
massive
Now there is a
government
big debate
failing.
within the Democratic Party
Memes.
here and around the country
Right.
about the best
Represent
way the
Liberty
Democrats
memes.
can win back Michigan. Vice President Biden,
I have to-
last night
I'm
on this stage,
contractually
Senator
obliged
Elizabeth
to say
Warren
that.
said, quote, "We're not going to solve the urgent problems that we face with small ideas and spinelessness.
cult.
We're going to solve them by
Yeah.
being the Democratic Party of big
Box
structural
apostrophe therapy.
change."
If you want to watch the debate,
What
you
do
can go
you
to
say to
CNN.com.
progressives
No
who worry
commentary.
that your proposals are not
Yep.
ambitious enough to energize the
It's really
progressive
easy, yeah.
wing of
You're
your
on the
party,
internet.
which you will need to beat
It
Donald
says it
Trump?
right in the corner there.
Because we did it.
CNN.
I was asked to manage an $87 billion
Biden is a
plan
equal
to
opportunity
be spent
sniffer.
in a total of
Yeah.
18 months
children.
that revived
Biden
this state and many others because
how
it
he
kept us
showed
out of a
affection.
depression. With
Quit
0.2% of
judging.
1%
Ajax, say
waste to
CNN one
fraud.
more time.
Secondly, I was part of the organization and within our administration that pushed bailing General Motors out, saving tens of thousands of jobs here in this state.
Which way am I
Number
pointing?
three.
This way. This guy's
Number
sober.
three, I also was
He's above
asked,
you.
as the mayor of Detroit can tell you, by the President of the United States
Oh,
to help
me.
Detroit
Oh, I see
get
what
out
you
of
said. Is he
bankruptcy
sober too?
and get back on its feet. I spent
can't
better
prove
part
that.
of 2 years out here working to make sure that it did exactly that. We invested significantly in this city when transportation,
giant.
only
I am
20.
kinda
Anyway,
tall.
the point is we
Don't make
made
myself look small.
significant
I think I look
investments in this
equally-
state. I
You're
expect
not as close
in
to
this
Mary as
city.
you
I
were on
expect
our
that's
screen.
why the mayor endorsed me.
Thank you, Vice President
Didn't
Biden.
endorse the senator.
Senator Gillibrand, what's your response?
There we go.
To the people
Oh,
of
cuddle
Michigan,
right
I'm
I know
6'3",
exactly how I view
Ajax,
President Trump.
but
I've already done
I
it.
want to
took
listen
a
to some
bus
of this
tour
stuff.
to talk
real
about
quick.
Trump's broken promises here in Michigan. He promised no bad trade deals. Not only did he not have bad trade deals, he started a trade war with China,
Oh, she already
and he
did
just signed on to another bad trade
Congratulations, Madam
agreement
President.
with NAFTA 2.0,
Yeah.
a giveaway to drug
Another thing I
companies
hope
in
we can all
Mexico.
agree on is
I
that these
took the bus to
tariffs are
Michigan,
really
to
not
Ohio,
helping
and to
anybody.
Pennsylvania, telling people
No.
that he has broken his promises to them. I lifted up their voices, I listened to their concerns, and I
No, are we
offered
talking
real
about tariffs?
solutions.
'Cause-
And I've done this before. My first House district I ran in was a 2-to-1 Republican district.
candidates.
I won it
I'm trying
twice,
to hear.
and I haven't lost an
Thank you.
election since. So I can bring people together in red, purple,
Yeah,
and
tariffs
blue
do hurt
areas.
the
But
consumers.
more than that,
Just the
I can
steel
get
tariffs
things
alone
done.
have put a
Yang, in
massive,
poll after
massive
poll,
pain on
Democratic voters saying
on,
that having a
construction.
nominee who can beat President Trump is more important to them than having a nominee who agrees with them on major issues. And right now, according to polls, they say the candidate who has the best
Denver and
chance
Arc
of doing
make
that, of
Mexico the
beating
new
President
China to
Trump,
build up their
is
economy.
Vice President
See,
Biden.
if we had a free
Why are they
trade deal
wrong?
with Mexico and we
Well, I'm
invested
building
in
a
their economy, that would
coalition of
actually be really good
disaffected
for
Trump
us as far as
voters,
manufacturing.
Independents, libertarians, and conservatives, as well as Democrats and progressives. I believe I'm the candidate
we're gonna
best
have to
suited to
talk
beat
about that
Donald
later.
Trump. And as for how to win in Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania, the problem is that so many people
We said
feel like the
libertarians.
economy has left them behind. What we have to do is we have to say, look, there's record
Yeah,
high
Yang is
GDP
pulling
and stock
for
market prices. You know what else are record
collapsitarian
highs?
votes.
Suicides, drug
He's getting
overdoses,
them, too.
depression, anxiety. It's gotten so
I
bad that
see it
American life
happening.
expectancy has declined for the
Literally
last
see it
3 years. And I like to talk about my wife who's at home
No,
with
Bill,
our
I
2
agree.
boys
There are a
right
lot
now,
of
one whom
problems,
is
but I'm just
autistic.
talking, like, if we're
What does
talking
her
about
work
theory
count at
of,
in
like,
today's economy? Zero.
international
And we know that's the
trade, like,
opposite
that
of
would
the
be
truth.
super
We know
good
that
to
her
have a
work is
big
among the most
Western
challenging and vital.
manufacturing
The
center
way
that
we
could
win this
compete
election
with
is we
Eastern
redefine
manufacturing.
economic progress to include all the things that matter to the people in Michigan and all of us, like our own health, our well-being, our mental health, our clean air and clean water, how our kids are doing.
Thanks,
If we
Ajax.
change the measurements for the 21st century economy to revolve around our own well-being,
Thank
then
you,
we
Ms.
will
Yang.
win this election.
Congresswoman Gabbard, your response?
Donald Trump won this
get it
election
done.
because far too many
Collapse.
people in this
Just
country
get
felt
over.
like they've been left
Let's get
behind
this over
by
with
both
already.
political
That-
parties, by
that needs to
self-serving
be a freaking
politicians on
yard
both sides
sign.
who are more interested in partisan
Yang
politics
2020.
than they
Let's
are in
get this
actually
over with
fighting
already.
for the people.
All right, everybody
I'm
shut
speaking
up.
the
Tulsi's
truth
talking.
to people all across this country about the fact that
This is my
people in
channel,
Flint, Michigan are still
Michael.
being left behind, still being poisoned by the water in their system. Because every single month we are spending $4 billion on a continuing war in Afghanistan.
All right, you can talk. I
$4
don't need to
billion
hear-
every single
No.
month, rather than ending that
Clear.
war, bringing our troops home,
No,
and
she
using
makes a
those
lot of good
precious
points.
resources into serving the needs of the people here in this country. People
Thank
and
you,
communities
Congresswoman.
like Flint. That's the
So-
kind of leadership that
thank you,
I'll bring.
Congresswoman.
Tulsi
Senator
Gabbard
Booker,
seems
your
to win
response?
at every
I'm
debate
grateful.
player.
I'm
I
grateful.
think
Thank you, Mike Jake. Look,
she's
this is one of those times where
pushing
we're
the
not
anti-war
staring at
narrative
the truth
that some
and
reason
calling
the
it
others
out. I mean,
won't
this is a
talk
case
about
the Democratic
is
Party
doing
and
really
truth will
well
set
for
us
her.
free.
Isn't
We
that supposed to be a
lost the
democratic
state of
thing? Is
Michigan.
like the anti-war.
Because everybody from
used to
Republicans
be.
They all
to
fought
Russians
for?
were targeting the suppression of African American voters. We need to say that. If the African American vote in this state had been like it was 4 years earlier, we would have won the state of Michigan. We need to have a campaign that is ready for what's coming. An all-out assault,
Get your
especially
ass
on
back
the
in the
most
kitchen.
valuable voter group in the highest performing voter group in our coalition, which is black women. And so I will be a person that tries to fight against voter suppression, that can activate and engage the kind of voters and coalitions that are going to win states like Michigan and Pennsylvania
Yeah,
and
spam.
Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
can't stand Cory
Senator
Booker,
Harris.
honestly.
First of all,
Crazy
Donald
nice.
Trump
That's what you
came
like
in making
about
a
him.
whole
Yeah,
lot
I
of
do.
promises to working
Yeah.
people that he did not
He's
keep.
just
He
very
said he was going to
animated.
help farmers. He
Like
said
his
he said he
eyes
was
are
going to help
doing a
auto workers.
totally different thing
Farmers
than
are now
himself.
looking at bankruptcy, soybeans rotting in bills. Auto workers, we expect perhaps hundreds of thousands will
Now
be
this
out
is
of
what we're
jobs
doing.
by the end of the year. Jerome Powell just dropped
Hundreds
the
of
interest
thousands
rates,
of
and he
jobs
admitted
by the
why.
end of the
because of
year.
this so-called trade policy that this
We have
president has that has been
5
nothing more
months
than
for
the
that?
Trump trade tax that has
Oh, you're ahead of
resulted
me.
in
Wow.
American families
Just a little
spending
bit,
as much
yeah.
as $1.4 billion more a month on everything from shampoo to washing machines. He betrayed the American people. He betrayed American families, and he will lose this election.
Flanker,
because
actually,
the
there's
votes
some
are
interesting
clear
history
that he has
behind
done
that.
nothing except try to
Well, her
beat
DA
people
position,
down
but-
instead of lift people up, and that's what
The
we
hell, I
want in
clicked
the next
something, got an
president of
ad.
the United States.
Thank you, Senator Harris. The debate is back right after this short break.
All right, let's mute this real quick because
All right.
they did it for me. Thank you. All
Yay.
right, so where are we at right now? So basically, it's a lot of the same things as the first debate, which I kind of expected, but they are overall a little bit more aggressive, which I think is pertinent because
And so is the audience.
what's that?
Yes, the audience
The audience is very
this
aggressive.
evening.
Oh,
was
compared to
there.
night one, yeah, that was crazy. That was insane.
What do you put that on? Is Yang Gang there, or is it a certain candidate that's bringing these people that are yelling?
I don't know. I mean, well, the one specifically, the first group, I have no idea what they were about, but the deportation group. I'm sorry, the second group they were chanting. But can you make the audio louder? I tried, man. The CNN audio is super low, so unless I make it to where you guys can't hear them at all, I can turn us up, but I can't turn the CNN audio up anymore. So I can try real quick if you guys can be patient with me.
Got a commercial break, unless you got to pee.
No, I'm all right.
So, just for for the people who are here, they don't maybe know who we are.
Yeah.
This is Liberty After Dark.
Yeah.
We'll do this. You do your
yeah,
thing.
Yeah, you do.
We're
Liberty
good at
After Dark.
promoting.
Christian is.
So you're on the
hosting the
channel
stream.
Liberty After Dark. Make sure you subscribe and check that thing because he does shit every week.
Yep.
And he's
Podcasts
talking
and-
about important stuff.
Very.
And really, he does a lot more intellectual stuff than we do. We're just on here as guests because we're more of a
Player, I should.
Yeah.
Fun, get to
I
know
really
people.
should.
Yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to get that comment. No, he said that I should use a preamp for my, like you use for the mixer, and I should. I've never had this issue before, so I never had a need for it, but it doesn't look like I can figure out any way to make it any louder.
Yeah, and you're not going to do it right now. And I'll tell you what, I added that stuff, and now my system's all bogged down, and I'm covered with other problems when I go stream. So make sure you follow this channel that you're on, Liberty After Dark. And if you want to watch our nonsense, check out Liberty Late Night. Look us up. You'll find Dave and Mary on there. A lot of nonsense.
I'll be completely transparent with you guys, so you're not surprised. I'm a libertarian, so if I try to be as fair as possible. But you can shitpost whenever you want. We started out in Facebook, so. But yeah, it's basically I do a show and I do a live stream for it, but I'm a libertarian, so. If you don't like that sort of thing, perhaps maybe you don't want to subscribe. I'm not gonna force you either way. But if you want to listen to something, I try to be as fair and fun as possible. So,
Yay! Yeah, no, this is great. This is fun. This is like our first real crossover episode.
Yeah, and we're
kind
getting
of
to
thing.
some
and this
stuff
is
here.
this is Liberty Late Night. These are the wholesome, amazing people that kind of inspired me to start doing this. So
Oh,
I like to
thank
do
you.
stuff with them. I actually had an interview with them. If you guys want to check out the podcast, so
It's out there.
It's there. But no, really.
And then we did an interview with you.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It is. I think we balance each other out really well.
we do.
It's a lot of fun.
We're all nonsense.
It's
and
a
fun
lot of fun.
and-
Yeah. I like to learn though. I like to learn.
That's why we hang out with Christian.
Yeah. Right.
And we're back with the
Commentary
CNN
on this
Democratic
is really, really
presidential
great.
debate.
Especially in the first half.
We want to
All
turn
right, here
now
we
to
are.
the
Debate's
economy.
Man, I wish I would have thought
Secretary
of
Castro,
tagging stuff.
this
That
is
was
for
a
you.
great idea.
Wage growth is up.
I'm just like,
Stocks are
I'm
rising.
hoping all my friends
Unemployment
come.
is
We got
near
10
historic
viewers.
lows.
Oh, I kinda wanna
including
listen to
for
this.
Latinos and African
130
Americans.
viewers.
Turn it up.
You have
or-
all
oh, yeah,
outlined
you did
outlined
ours.
plans, but you in particular that could end up raising taxes. How can you guarantee
taxes.
that won't hurt the
Taxes. You
First of
guys
all,
know that taxation is
there are a lot
theft,
of Americans
right?
right now that are hurting. Just go and ask the folks that just received notice that they're going to get laid off by
Yeah,
General
nobody is
Motors.
speaking
Or
Spanish,
ask
and
the
it's
many
really
folks who are
upsetting.
sleeping on the streets in big cities and small towns across the United States. Or ask fast food workers that I joined a couple of weeks ago that are
Where did
working
this
for
guy come
minimum
from? Has
wage
he talked
and
at
can't
all?
provide for their families
has, honey.
or pay the rent.
I've been drunk.
So the idea that America is doing just fine is wrong. Not only that, this president always likes to take credit, like he did this.
And
We've now had
caps.
about 105 straight months of positive job growth, the longest streak in American history. Over 80 months of that was due to President Barack Obama. Thank you, Barack Obama. Thank you, Barack Obama.
There's actually a lot to unpack in that statement,
what will
but
ensure that Americans can prosper in the years to come, making sure they have the knowledge and skills to compete in the 21st century economy, ensuring that they can afford the rent where they live, and that they have health care so that they don't have to worry about going homeless because they can't afford a medical procedure.
Thank you, Secretary
He
Castro.
totally dodged the tax
I want to
question,
turn
which
now
I don't
to
appreciate,
a question
but
about trade.
I didn't
and
expect
for
anything
Congresswoman
less.
Gabbard, many saw the Trans-Pacific Partnership issue as something that would be a critical tool to deal with the rise of China. You were against it. How would you ensure that the United States is able to remain competitive against China on the world stage?
No, talk about
By pushing for fair trade, not trade deals that give away the sovereignty of the American people and our country, that give away American jobs, and that threaten our
wow, I think
environment.
the stream is
These
way
are
ahead
the
of
three
us.
main issues with that massive trade deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I think the central one was the fact that it gave away our sovereignty to a panel of international corporations whose rulings would supersede any domestic law that we would pass, either a federal law or a state or a local law. This is extremely dangerous and goes against the very values that we have as a country. What to speak of the fact that it would have a negative impact on domestic jobs.
The
and that it
TPPA
lacked
was
clear
bad because it was
protections
just
for
a
our
horrible deal for
environment. These are the
everybody
things that we have
involved,
to keep at
except
the
for, like she
forefront
said,
as
a
we
couple
look to
major
enact fair
corporations.
trade deals
So
with other countries
nobody
to
really
make sure
won
that we
from that
continue
deal.
to be a thriving part of our global economy.
So to be clear, Congresswoman, would you
Tulsi
keep President
2020
Trump's
is here.
tariffs on
Yeah.
China in place?
I would not.
You're kinda
because the
biased, aren't
approach that President Trump has taken has been extremely volatile, without any clear strategic plan, and it has a ravaging and devastating effect on our domestic manufacturers, on our farmers who are already struggling and now failing to see the light of day because of the plan that Trump has
comments.
taken.
Vice President Biden, would you rejoin the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which, of course, the President Trump withdrew from? Please respond.
Yeah, Tulsi
I'd
2020.
renegotiate it. We
I say
make up
Bernie had his
25%
chance in
of the world's
2016.
economy.
I don't think he's going to get
In
it.
order, either China's going to write the rules of the road for the 21st century on trade, or we are. We have to join with the 40% of the world that we had with us, and this time make sure that there's no one sitting at that table doing the deal unless environmentalists
right-wing
are there
libertarian,
and labor is there.
technically.
And to make sure we equip our workers
wanna get
first
really
to compete
specific about
by
it.
investing in them now, in the things
hard
to
to
make
say.
them more competitive. That's
But
what we
not
have to
in
do.
like a
Otherwise, they
closet
are gonna
Republican
write the
sort
rules
of
the
way.
road. We must
No.
have the rest of the world join us
Like
to
a-
keep them
like
in
Thank you.
check
all
from
the shit
abusing.
burned
Thank
down
you.
type
Vice
way.
President Biden,
Yeah.
just to be clear, would you or would you
Auction-
not
auction it
rejoin the
off to the
TPP,
highest
yes or
bidder.
no?
I would not rejoin the TTP as it was
Oh, yeah, where's
initially
Kanye?
put forward. I would insist that we renegotiate pieces of that with the Pacific nations that we had in South
You're an
America
alt-right,
and
just
North
admit it.
America, so that we can bring them together to hold China accountable for the rules of us setting the rules of the road as to how trade should be conducted.
Biden's talking.
Otherwise, they're
I
going to
said
do
the same
exactly
thing
what they're
for
doing,
Tulsi.
fill the vacuum and run the table.
Thank you, sir. Mayor de Blasio, you also oppose the deal. Please respond.
Yeah, and I would just want to ask this question of all the candidates, but particularly of Vice President Biden. President Trump is trying to sell NAFTA 2.0. He's got a new
getting
name for it.
involved.
It's just as dangerous as
Just by the way,
old
if anybody
NAFTA.
wants to
It's
listen to
gonna
this
take
without
away American
commentary, you
jobs
can go
like
to
the old NAFTA,
CNN.com
like it
and
did
watch
to
it.
Michigan. And we cannot have Democrats
Otherwise,
be party
look at
to a
what
new
we're
NAFTA. So,
saying.
Vice President, I believe you're the only person
Yeah,
on stage
I don't
who
care about de
voted for
Blasio.
the
I'm gonna talk
original
over him.
NAFTA.
Sorry,
Are you
so.
ready to say here and now
This guy's
that
a
you
joke.
oppose a new NAFTA? and that
He's
what
wasting
you
screen
believe in,
time. I
which a
want to
lot
listen
of
to
us
somebody
hope
who has
for,
a chance and
is
isn't going to get
trade
kicked out
treaties
next
that
debate.
empower organized labor
Vape into my
across
ear?
the boundaries of the
No, I'm
world
not gonna do
and
it.
give
There's
working
100 other people who don't want
power,
that.
not just
Vice President.
multinational corporations.
This is
Sorry,
just a vape.
Nicotine.
Your response, sir?
I'm drinking.
Yes.
That's it?
No, he said, would I insist
Right into his ear.
that
Okay.
labor
That's
be
ASMR.
engaged? The answer is
Whatever.
yes.
I consider that a victory.
Okay.
Well, I love
We got a
your
Bernie
affection
boy here?
for me. You spent a lot of time with me.
You know what? We believe in redemption, Joe. We believe in redemption in this party.
Well,
Yeah, you're going to freaking need it, Blasio.
Okay, I want to ask a question of Senator Bennett now. Senator, CNN reached out to Michigan Democratic primary voters for their most pressing question.
This is how I show affection.
Ferris from Flint, Michigan, has this question. Here in Detroit, our economy has seen firsthand how technology and automation can displace workers and create uncertainty around human job security. How would you balance these disruptions created by technology with the beneficial impact of technology on our economy?
Dana, this goes to the last question you asked as well, which is how are we going to remain competitive? It's not just about trade, which we were talking about earlier. It's about whether we're going to invest in this country anymore. Since 2001, we have cut $5 trillion worth of taxes. Almost all of that has gone to the wealthiest people in America. We have made the income inequality worse, not better, through the policies of the federal government. We've spent $5.6 trillion in the Middle East. That's 12 or 13 trillion dollars that, from the point of view of driving the economy in Michigan or anywhere else in America,
that statistic's actually on point. I think the last one I saw was like 5.2, but still.
And we need to invest
multi-trillions of dollars have been spent literally just in the Middle East.
That I just described, we could have fixed every road and bridge in this country.
Oh, I can't even
We could
think
have
about
fixed
that.
every airport that needs to be fixed. We could have fixed not just Flint, but every water system in this country.
He sounds like the guy from Step Brothers.
For my children.
Thank you, Senator.
But we did none of it because of self-serving politicians in Washington, D.C., who voted for deals that were good for them,
Senator Bennett,
but not
thank you
for
very
Michigan
much.
or the American
Your time is
people.
up, sir. Mr.
Apples
Yang.
and oranges.
But now we're ahead.
I just
Mr.
can't.
Yang, women, on average,
Okay, I kinda wanna hear what he says.
earn 80 cents.
Yeah.
About 80 cents for
Hear
every dollar
Yang
earned
say
by
it.
men.
Yeah, we gotta.
Senator Harris wants to fine companies that don't close their gender pay gaps. As an entrepreneur, do you think a stiff fine will change how companies pay their female employees?
He's going to go with it.
I have seen firsthand the inequities in the business world where women are concerned, particularly in startups and entrepreneurship. We have to do more at every step. And if you're a woman entrepreneur, the obstacles start not just at home, but then when you seek a mentor or an investor, often they don't look like you, and they might not think your idea is the right one. In order to give women a leg up, what we have to do is we have to think about women in every situation, including the ones who are in exploitative and abusive jobs and relationships around the country. I'm talking about the waitress who's getting harassed by her boss at the diner.
See, this is a question of whether this is all social issues that he's talking about.
What we have to do
These
is
are all
we have to
social
give
issues.
women the economic freedom to be able to improve their own situations and start businesses.
not every
And the best
time.
way to do this is by putting
I
a
expected
dividend of
them to say something more
$1,000 a month
intelligent than just
into their hands.
that.
It would be a game changer for women
Yeah,
around
like
the country.
there's
because we
nothing.
know that
These
women
are
do
social
more of
issues.
the
I don't see how
unrecognized
government
and uncompensated
is
work
involved
in
in
our
that.
society. It will not change unless we change it. And I say that's just what we do.
Yeah, like we should be promoting a society that treats
I think
people
that's
equally,
supported
but
my proposal, which is this.
This isn't a
Since
government thing.
1963, when we passed the Equal Pay Act, we have been talking about the fact women are not paid equally for
I mean, unless
equal
you're
work.
bad at
Fast forward to
capitalism,
the
then-
year
the
of
pay
our
gap
Lord,
has been
2019,
disproven,
women are paid
guys.
80 cents
Why
on
is
the
it still a
dollar, black
talking
women
point?
61 cents, Native American women 58 cents, Latinas 53 cents.
that
I'm
apply
done
to
with
the
the
Yang Bucks?
conversation. So yes, I am proposing, in order to deal with this, one, I'm going to
brought
require
tears.
corporations to post on their website whether they are paying women equally for equal work. Two, they will be fined for every 1% differential
Hey, you
between
got
what they are
another
paying
ginger
men
in
and
here with
women.
you.
They
Shade
will be
ginger.
fined 1% of their previous year's profits. That'll get everybody's attention.
Thank you, Senator.
Jeff says
Senator
that government is
Tyler
entirely
Action.
involved in the
Senator
material
Gillibrand,
conditions in which a
what's your
society
response?
exists,
Will finding
but the material
companies of
conditions don't
self-development-
necessarily reflect the social interactions between
I
a
think we
society.
have
They
to have
could
a
be
broader conversation
relevant, I
about whether we
suppose,
value
if you want to go
women
that
and
route,
whether
but they're
we
not.
want to make sure women have every opportunity in the workplace. And I want to address
Broke
Vice
150.
President Biden directly.
It's not a.
When the
they're
Senate was
not in
debating
tandem.
middle class affordability for childcare, he wrote an op-ed. He voted against it, the only vote. But what he wrote in an op-ed was that he believed that women working outside the home would, quote, create the deterioration of family. He also said that women who were working
Hey,
outside
yeah, I
the
know,
home
right?
were, quote,
We got to
avoiding
get out of the Middle East
responsibility.
first.
And I just need to understand, as a woman who's worked my entire career as the primary
Way to put
wage
shit in
earner,
perspective.
as the primary caregiver. In fact, my second son, Henry, is here. And I had him when I was a member of Congress. So under Vice President Biden's analysis, am I serving in Congress resulting in the deterioration of the
Genocidal
family
might be
because
a
I had
bit
access to quality affordable daycare? I just want
what's
to
the
know
word
what
I'm
he
looking for
meant
here?
when he said
Hyperbole, but
That was a long time ago,
It's
and
bad.
here's what it was about. It would have
Women's
given people making today $100,000 a year a tax break for child care. I did not want that. I wanted the child care to go to people making less than $100,000, and that's what it was about. As a single father, who in fact raised 3 children for 5 years by myself, I have some idea what it costs.
He's trying
I
to snip.
support making sure that
See him
every
lean
single
over?
solitary person needing child care get an
Even do the
$8,000
split
tax
cam.
credit now. That would put
can tell. He's close.
700,000 women
flaring
back
the
to work,
nostrils.
increase the GDP by almost 0.8%. It's the right thing to do. If we can give tax breaks to corporations for these things, why can't we do it this way?
But Mr. Vice President, you didn't answer my question. What did you mean when you said when a woman works outside the home, it's resulting in, quote, the deterioration of family?
No,
and that we are avoiding, these are quotes. It was the title of the op-ed. And that just causes concern for me because we know America's women are working. 4 out of 10 moms have to work. They're the primary or sole wage earners. They actually have to put food on the table. 8 out of 10 moms are working today. Most women have to work to provide for their kids. Many women want to be working to provide for their communities and to help people.
Let
so
the Vice President
either you
respond.
don't believe it today, or what did you mean when you said it
In the
then?
very beginning, my deceased wife worked, but we had children. My present wife has worked all the way through raising our children. The fact of the matter is, the situation is one that I don't know what's happened. I wrote the Violence Against Women Act, Lilly Ledbetter. I was deeply involved in making sure the equal pay amendments. I was deeply involved in all these things. I came up with the It's On Us proposal to see to it that women were treated more decently on college campuses. You came to Syracuse University with me and said it was wonderful. I'm passionate about the concern, making sure women are treated equally. I don't know what's happened except that you're now running for president.
So I understand, Mr. Vice President.
Oh my God.
Mr. Vice President, I respect you deeply. I respect you deeply. But those words are very specific. You said women working outside the home would lead to the deterioration of
no,
family.
she's done.
My grandmother
Turn off
worked
her
outside
mic.
the home.
She's done.
My mother worked outside the home.
It killed her.
And
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand.
So, well, he
Oh,
has.
shit,
Whether
we killed her,
either
dude.
he no longer believes it. I mean, I just think he
I
needs
never
to.
believed it.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Please
Trying to get
respond.
closer to the
Well, I
screen.
just
here.
That was so good
Listen,
from
I mean,
Biden.
talk about
Like,
now
just
running
talking
for
about
president,
the
you
art
change
of
your
politics.
position on the
That was
Hyde
so
Amendment,
good.
Vice President,
His
where
turnaround
you
comeback.
made a
He's
decision
needed to
for
do that this
years
whole
to
debate.
withhold resources to poor
Whether I
women
like
to
him or
have
not.
access to reproductive health care.
I didn't think I would see a murder debate.
Including women who were the victims of rape and incest. Do you now say that you have evolved and you regret that? Because you've only, since you've been
in
running
for
for
Clemson?
president this time, said that you in some way would take that back, or you didn't agree with the decision that you made over many, many years. And this directly impacted so many women in our country. And I personally prosecuted rape cases and child molestation cases. And the experience that those women have, those children have,
That seemed
and that
like
they
a
would
direct
then be
stab.
denied the
Thank you, Senator. Let the
resources,
Vice President
I think
respond.
is unacceptable.
The fact is that the senator knows that's not my position. Everybody on this stage has been in the Congress, and the Senate or House has voted for the Hyde Amendment at some point. The Hyde Amendment in the past was available because there was other access for those kinds of services provided privately. But once I wrote the legislation making sure that every single woman would in fact have an opportunity to have health care paid for by the federal government, everyone, that could no longer stand. I support a woman's right to choose. I support it's a constitutional
He
right.
does.
I've supported it. I will continue
Whether
to support it.
it's
And I will, in fact,
ethical or
move
not
as
is a
president to
conversation
see
to
that
have,
the Congress
but-
legislates that is the law as
Christian
well.
loves to have.
Why
you,
did
Mr.
it
Vice
take you so
President.
long
Governor Inslee,
to
your
change
response?
your position on the Hyde Amendment? Why did it take so long until you were running for president to change your position on the Hyde Amendment?
Because there was not full federal funding for all
Do you
reproductive
officially speak for
services
Tulsi?
prior to this point.
Okay. Thank you. Governor Inslee, your response?
Ooh, the Kamala Harris eye roll, because she doesn't have anything to say against that. Oh, look, another guy I don't care
We need
about.
to think about a bigger scandal in America, which is that in professions and careers where women have been more than the majority, They have been almost always.
You're a libertarian. How are you against abortion?
That
I'm
is why
not,
this year I'm
but
proud
I
to be
think
the
there
governor
are ethical cases
who
to
won
make
the
to where
largest
it
pay
is
increase for
not
our
something that we
educators
should
in the
be
United
supporting.
States. And I believe
but
that is long, long overdue. I think it is true for nursing
we have two different
staff as
viewpoints
well,
on
and I'm
this.
glad that we've
Yeah,
now passed
they're-
new measures.
they are.
And I'm glad that we've
I'm not.
increased our union membership 10%
Thank you,
so
Governor.
unions can
Thank you,
stand
Governor
up for
Inslee.
women
I
as
want to
well.
turn to foreign policy if we can.
But we had a really
Senator
good
Booker,
conversation about it
There are
not
about
too long ago.
14,000 U.S. service members in
Trying to
Afghanistan
avoid
right now.
anything racy.
If elected,
We
will they
talked
still
about
be in
abortion.
Afghanistan by the end of your first year in office?
Well, first of all, I want to say very clearly that I will not do foreign policy by tweet, as Donald Trump seems to do all the time. A guy that literally tweets out that we're pulling our
Abortion's very
troops out
complicated,
before his
Chris.
generals even know about it is creating a dangerous situation for our troops in places like Afghanistan. And so I will bring our troops home, and I will bring them home as quickly as possible.
See, this is
But
one
will
thing I
not
agree
set
with pretty
during
much
the
all of these
campaign
guys
an
on. Like,
artificial
yes,
deadline.
it
I will
risks
make sure we do
destabilizing
it,
the Middle
we do it
East, but I
expeditiously,
think it's
we do
the
it
best thing to
safely,
do
not create a vacuum
is to bring them
that's
home.
ultimately going to destabilize the Middle East
Yeah,
and
mistakes
perhaps
been made
create the
already.
environment
Sick of people
for
coming home in
terrorism and
boxes
for extremism to
for a
threaten our nation.
60-year-long
Congresswoman Gabbard,
war.
you're the only veteran on the stage. Please respond.
This is real in a way that's
She's gonna
very
bring them
difficult to
feels.
convey
Hold
in
on,
words. I was deployed to Iraq in 2005 during the height of the war, where I served in a field medical unit where every single day I saw the high cost of war.
Oh, she's a vet.
Yeah.
Just this past week, 2 more of our soldiers were killed in Afghanistan.
How do you compete
My
against
cousin
that?
is deployed to Afghanistan
and
right
she's a
now.
vet.
Nearly 300 of our Hawaii National Guard soldiers are deployed to Afghanistan. 14,000 service members are deployed there. This is not about arbitrary deadlines. This is about leadership. The leadership I will bring to do the right thing, to bring our troops home within the first year in office.
She's got some pretty crazy
because
stories
they shouldn't
from
have
over
been
there.
this long.
I don't know people
For
who
too
don't.
long,
I've
we've had
known
leaders
stories.
who have been arbitrating foreign policy from ivory towers
I
in
haven't have any
Washington
stories. I haven't
without
gone
any
anywhere.
idea about the cost and the consequence, the toll that it takes on our service members, on their families. We have to do the right thing, end these wasteful
Tulsi
regime change
2020?
wars, and bring our
Noticeably
troops
quiet
home.
right now.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Mr. Yang, Iran has now breached the terms of the 2015 nuclear deal after
Ooh,
President Trump
man.
withdrew the U.S. from the deal.
Don't even get me
And that
started
puts
on the
Iran
nuclear
closer
deal.
to building a nuclear weapon,
he
the
just stand
ability
like
to do
that?
so at the very least.
he
You've said
don't?
if Iran
No, he's not.
violates
He's
the
just-
agreement,
that's
the U.S.
how
would
you
need to
build.
respond, quote, very
mean, his neck,
strongly. So
yeah.
how would a President Yang respond right now?
I would move to de-escalate tensions in Iran because they're responding to the fact that we pulled out of this agreement. And it wasn't just us and Iran, there were many other world powers that were part of that multilateral agreement. We'd have to try and re-enter that agreement, renegotiate the timelines because the timelines now don't make as much sense. But I've signed a pledge to end the forever wars. Right now, our strength abroad
Yeah, this
reflects our
is
strength
one
at home.
thing that
What's
I will
happened,
pretty much
really?
agree with everybody on this stage.
We've
is
fallen
that
apart at home, so
they
we
have
like
the
to
right
Donald
idea
Trump,
on
and now we have this erratic
East
and
and foreign policy. Now,
unpredictable
whether they do that or
relationship with
not,
even our long-standing
now I
partners
don't
and
know about the
allies.
Iran deal thing.
What we have
There's
to do
some,
is we have to start
there's some
investing
nuance
those
there,
resources
but
to solve the problems right here at home.
yeah,
We
imagine
spent trillions of
imagine
dollars and
Yang
lost
sitting in the
thousands of
same room
American
as like
lives in conflicts that had
anybody
unclear
really, like
benefits.
the
We've been in a
Russians or the
constant state of
Ayatollah,
war for 18 years.
Ayatollah
This is
Khomeini.
not what the American people want. I would bring the troops home, I would de-escalate tensions with Iran, and I would start investing our resources in our own communities.
Governor Inslee, your response?
Well, I think that these are matters of great and often difficult judgment. And there is no sort of primer for presidents
back.
to read. We have to
100,
determine
probably
whether
because most
the
people who
potential
put it up
president
are,
has
I don't care about
adequate
this guy, so I'm going
judgment
to talk
in
over him.
his decisions.
Probably because most of the people
I
who
was
put
only
this
one of
debate up are
2
just putting it
members
up,
on this
and
panel
because
today who are
we're doing
called to
commentary
make
on
a
the debate,
judgment
it's protected under
about the
fair
Iraq
use.
War.
So that's
I
why
was a
we
relatively new
were able
member
to
of
keep
Congress,
it up. So
and I made the right judgment because it was obvious to me that George Bush was fanning the flames of war. Now we face similar situations where we recognize we have a president who'd be willing to beat the drums of war. We need a president who can
Dauber.
stand up against the drums of war and make rational decisions.
saw
That was
hands.
the
Thank
right
you.
vote, and I believe
Thank
it.
you, Governor. Vice President Biden, he was
somebody's, like, trying
obviously
to talk.
suggesting that
Comment.
you made the wrong decision and had bad judgment
Yes.
when you voted to go to war in
My.
Iraq as a U.S. Senator.
No.
No,
I
it's
did
not.
make a bad
No,
judgment
this one
trusting
is.
the president said he was
Because
only
my name.
doing this to
Oh,
get
okay.
inspectors in
Got a
and get the
comment in
UN
there.
to agree to put inspectors
comment.
in.
I
From the
subscribe
moment
to this.
Shock
This
and
is
Awe
us. We're
started,
here.
from that
Keith,
moment,
that's a very
I
common
was
thing. Most
opposed
of the
to
people aren't
effort, and
answering
I was
questions.
outspoken as much as
Yeah.
anyone at all in the Congress and
They say
administration.
what they
Secondly,
got to say.
I was asked by the president in the first meeting we had on Iraq. He turned and said, "Joe, get our combat troops out," in front of the entire
Sergeant
national
Major
security
and
team.
Hawaii National
One of the
Guard.
proudest moments of my life was to stand
that
there in
Tulsa?
Afar
Okay,
Palace
yeah,
and
Tulsa
tell
2020 said
everyone
that.
that we're coming, all our combat troops are coming home. I opposed the
you.
surge in Afghanistan. This long overdue, we should have not, in fact, gone into Afghanistan.
Thank
the way
Should have not
Thank you, Mr.
gone
Vice
in.
President. I want to bring in. I
Oh.
would like to bring in the person on the
You
stage who
shut your
served in
mouth,
Iraq,
Joe.
Governor. I'm sorry,
Not allowed to say that.
Congresswoman Gabbard. Your response to what Vice President Biden just
Back
said.
again.
We're all
All
lied
war
to.
is good.
This is the
Be quiet.
betrayal. This is the
All war is
betrayal
good,
to the
right?
American people, to me, to my
She's
fellow
calling
service
him out.
members. We were all lied to, told that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, was working with Al Qaeda, and that this posed a threat to the American people. So I enlisted after 9/11 to protect our country, to go after those who attacked us on that fateful day, who took the lives of thousands of Americans. The problem is that this current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after Al Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after Al Qaeda, who is stronger today than they were in 9/11, our president is supporting Al Qaeda.
Thank you, Congressman.
No.
Let's talk about.
Hold on.
We're on the march to
That
war
sounded
in
like a
Iran
big
right
shutting
now,
mouth
and we
moment.
blew
Please,
by it.
Mayor.
I'm
the
not a
rules, please
Trump
follow the
supporter,
Respect the rules,
but
we
what
have
kind of
to
a
have
claim
a
is
war
that?
in Iran,
We're
and the
going on,
Democratic
and we're going
Party
to talk
has
about another
stand up
subject.
for it.
Mayor, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's talk about now the former special counsel Robert Mueller's appearance in front of Congress
referenced
last
him
week.
last night,
When asked
yeah.
whether or not the
Let's change the
president could be
subject.
charged with a crime after leaving
Yeah.
office, his answer was yes.
Jeez.
Senator Harris, you have criticized President
they
Trump
just
for interfering with the Justice
Change the
Department. And
subject.
just last month, you
Wow,
said
and
if you were
everyone's okay
elected
with that.
president, your Justice Department would, quote,
So
have no
show.
choice
That
and
everyone in
should
the
go
audience
forward
was
with the
bitching
obstruction
earlier.
of justice.
Isn't
charges
Timber
against
Sycamore the
President Trump.
Kurds? I'm
Why
pretty
is it
sure that's
okay
the
for you
Kurds.
to advocate for the
I could
Justice
be wrong,
Department
though.
to prosecute somebody, but President Trump, not him?
Well, I would never direct the Department of Justice to do whatever it believes it should do. But listen,
Yeah, de-
look, we
Bill de
all
Blasio's
watched
joke.
his testimony. I read the report. There are 10 clear incidents of obstruction of justice by this president, and he needs to be held accountable. I've seen people go to prison for far less. And the reality of it is that we have a person in the White House right now
No steppy.
who has been shielded by
stepping.
a memo in the United States Department of Justice that says a
Why
sitting
is this
president
still a
cannot
narrative,
be
guys?
indicted. I believe the American people are
But there's
right
so
to
many
say
other
there should be
things you could
consequence and
talk about,
accountability
but
for everyone, and no one is
Obstruction
above
of
the law,
justice is not a
including the
black and white
President of the
issue. It's
United
not.
States.
This is a nuanced topic.
Response?
It's gonna be 800 more
My
debates.
response is exactly that.
super
I've read
popular.
the report. I've read the redacted versions of the report. We have something that is astonishing going on in the United States of America. We have a president that is not acting like the leader of the free world. He's acting like an authoritarian against
Mary, can you
the
talk for me
actual
real quick?
Constitution that he swore
Yeah,
an
sure.
oath to
You want me to
uphold.
say something? I can.
So this is a difference with
say
a lot of
something
us on
kinda
this
slurred.
debate stage.
My fourth
I
glass
believe
of
that
wine.
we in the United States Congress
Woo!
should
Okay, you're good.
start
No, it's on. It was just
impeachment
making like a really
proceedings
loud whining
immediately.
noise.
And I'll tell you this. Debbie
that's just
Stabenow
Mary.
now has
Wait,
joined
what?
my call
Sound?
for starting impeachment
loud
proceedings
whiny
because
noise.
he is now stonewalling Congress, not allowing, they were subjecting themselves to the checks and balances. We
Christian's
swore an
like,
oath to uphold the
"Everyone touch
Constitution.
that
The politics of this be damned. When we look back in history at what happened when
worked
the
that
President of the
out.
United States
Yeah.
started acting more
Couples
like
issue,
an
right
authoritarian
there.
leader than the leader of the free world.
the chat die
question
again?
is
I think it
what
did.
will we have
No,
done?
what?
And I
No, I
believe the
see-
Congress
your-
should
your
do its
chat
job.
died,
Senator
but
Booker, thank
the
you
other
very
one's
much.
still
Secretary
going.
Castro,
No,
what's your
this is, I
response?
see it's just coming
Well, I
in.
agree.
I'll just
I was
reboot
the
it real
first of the
quick.
candidates to call on Congress to begin impeachment proceedings. There are 10 different instances that Robert Mueller has pointed out where this president either
You done
obstructed
up,
justice or
Ron?
attempted to obstruct justice. And I believe that they should go
Oh,
forward
man.
with impeachment proceedings. As to the question of what my Department of Justice would do, I agree with those who say that a president should not direct an attorney general specifically to prosecute or not prosecute.
just laughing at
However,
everything.
I believe that the evidence is
Do
plain
it.
and clear,
I
and
love
that if
it.
it gets that far,
Have y'all heard of
that
Liberty
you're likely
memes?
to see a prosecution of Donald Trump.
I heard
Thank you,
Liberty.
Secretary.
Somebody say
Mayor de
that?
Blasio,
Liberty
I'm going to bring you in.
memes.
What's your response?
No, I'm saying it.
I think it's obvious at this point in our history that the president has committed the crimes worthy of impeachment. impeachment. But I want to caution my fellow Democrats, while we move in every way we can for impeachment,
That's moving fast.
we
It's hard
have to
keep
remember
up.
at the same
having fun.
time, the
Other
American people are out there looking
other
for us
channels
to
is
do
all
something
anger.
for them.
I
in
mean,
their
trust me, I
lives.
can get
And what they
mad,
see when
but
they turn
there's
on
no
the TV
point.
or
I just
online,
like to
we're
talk
not
about what
talking
the facts
about
are.
impeachment.
And
We
once
need
again,
more
we don't care
talking
about blood.
what
Why does he have so much
their
screen
lives.
time?
For example,
This guy's eating up screen time from people who actually could use talking.
Are we ready to make sure that the wealthy pay their
That-
fair
that
share
makes
of
me
taxes?
mad.
That's something every American wants to
Yeah.
know about. That's something
They
they want
have to
answers
give
to
B.
right now.
Arthur
So yeah, move for impeachment, but don't
time
forget to do the
say what
people's
she
business
needs to
and to
say.
stand up for working people, because that's how we're actually going to beat Donald Trump.
Oh,
The
man.
best
Yeah.
impeachment
What
is
does liberty
beating him
means?
in the election of 2020.
Mayor, thank you very much.
Well,
Senator
Aaron
Bennett, how do you
Kenner.
respond to
Yeah,
this
Aaron
conversation?
Kenner.
I think, look, as we go forward
the
here,
memes
we
of
need to
liberty on
recognize a
Facebook.
very
Yeah.
practical
Another guy I
reality,
don't care about.
which is that we are 4 months.
Bill,
in.
I won't
We've
be
got
here in the next
August
debates de
recess.
Blasio. Neither
Then
will
we
Michael
are 4
Bennett.
months away from
If
the
he make
Iowa
actually,
caucus.
there's a very slight
And I
chance
just
that he
wanna
could
make
get a
sure
poll
whatever
boost
we
and make
do
it, but it's very
doesn't
unlikely.
end up with an
Yeah, go
acquittal
for
by
it.
Mitch
Very
McConnell in the Senate, which it surely would.
Are they
and
gonna-
then
who
President Trump
decides
would
who
be
comes on
running
next?
saying
The
that he had
DNC.
been acquitted by the United States
okay.
Congress.
Cool.
I believe we have a moral obligation to beat Donald Trump. He has to be a
Mostly money.
single-term president, and we can't do anything that plays into his hands. We were talking earlier about climate up here. It's so important. Donald
Who's
Trump should
Sperto?
be
You
the
need to
last
get into
climate
Liberty
denier
memes.
that's ever in the White House.
Senator
Liberty
Bennett,
memes
thank you
community
very much.
group.
Kerry
Fun.
Castro, please respond.
But we
Hi,
need to be
David.
smart about how
Thank you,
we're
Senator.
running, or we're going to give him a second
Secretary,
term.
please,
We
your
can't
turn.
do it.
Well, let me first say that I really do
It's-
believe that we can
it's gonna
walk
be
and
hard
chew
for
gum at the
Yang to
same
make
time.
it.
All of us have a vision for the future of the country
kinda
that
fun,
we're
though.
articulating to the American people. We're going to continue.
It would be
do
cool
that.
to have
We
him on
an election
stage. You
coming
get to
up.
talk more.
At the same time, Senator, I think that
Yeah,
too many
you know,
folks in the
after
Senate and in the
Ron Paul
Congress have
didn't
been
make it,
spooked
it'd
by
be just fun to see
1998.
somebody else.
I believe that the times are different. And in fact, I think that folks are making a mistake by not
Oh, another
pursuing
one of the kids
impeachment.
is here.
The Mueller report clearly details that he deserves it. And what's going to happen in the fall of next year, of 2020, if they don't impeach him, is he's going to say,
Still
you see,
Dave and Mary.
you see, the Democrats didn't go after me on impeachment, and you know why? Because I didn't do anything wrong. These folks that always investigate me, they're always trying to go after me.
Special
When it
guest
came down
D3,
to
Jason
it,
Bryant,
they didn't go after me there because
You
I didn't
know.
do anything wrong. Conversely, if Mitch McConnell is the one that lets him off the hook, we're going to be able to say, well,
Secretary.
sure, they impeached him in the
Secretary
House,
Castro,
but his friend
thank
Mitch
you.
McConnell, Moscow
Thank you,
Mitch,
Secretary.
let him off the
Sure
hook.
say.
Senator Bennett, please respond.
Let's save the pugs, the NTDM.
I don't disagree with that. You just said it better than I did. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time. It is incredibly unusual for members of Congress to be able to do that.
No,
and I'm
go tell
glad
Dad
that
he's gotta come back
Secretary
down.
Castro has the
Well, my
ambition.
brother can't. He's here
That's what I
tonight.
was going to say. It's your
really wanna
brother
hear all
that's
this?
giving you that good feeling
I was
about
watching
the
it up
Congress.
there.
I know
That's
you
what we
were.
should do.
Yeah,
Thank you,
were. He
Senator.
was
Thank
watching
you,
it.
gentlemen.
Oh,
The debate continues right after this.
Evening says hi.
The debate continues? I thought they were going to do closing statements. They might be doing. Actually,
Wow.
they'll probably come back and do
Boy,
closing
what's going
statements.
on? Yeah.
Because it's already been 2.5 hours. This kid will grow up political and smart. I'm trying. No, so, so are they.
Yeah, no. Libertarian.
This
anarchist.
chat is not appropriate for children. Yeah, I could agree with that, Flanker. I wonder
Yeah.
who's doing that.
Yeah. So he's 10. He's 10. You know, we kind of. But Tuttle Twins.
Don't talk about it.
Nope.
Talk about it.
Tuttle Twins
Stop
author.
it, shush.
No, you shush.
All right.
You shush.
See you later.
Connor Boyack is coming on our show Friday night. Tuttle and David Little D3 is mad because he really wants to stay up and talk to this guy, but he's coming on our show. Yeah, because we are. What is this? Did you put lotion on your hands, or is that Davy's lotion? Hey, go talk to him. No, he needs someone. No.
No.
But yeah, Connor Boyack is coming on Liberty Late Night Friday. Which, who knows where are we
Hey,
sitting outside of Facebook?
that was
Or
wicked
being
dadding
scammed
right there.
on Facebook, yeah. Yep.
Oh man. No,
Anyway.
yeah, nothing really to say much about that last part, except for the fact that I pretty much agree with them. And there was a comment earlier about how it's not as easy as just like pulling everybody out. I understand that there's a lot of nuance to the issue, and that it risks destabilizing the Middle East. and that there's a lot of risk involved, in fact, in doing
But
something like
we
that.
kind of already did that.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of risk involved in keeping Americans over there, and
By going there.
I'm tired of sending people home in boxes, man. I'm over it. You know. What are the negatives
right.
about Tulsi? In my opinion, assault weapons ban. I don't think that there's an ethical case for a assault weapons ban on innocent citizens. But that's me. I'm sure there are
also a
plenty of
very
people here who
big
don't agree with that, but that's how I stand on it. I don't know if she sponsored a buyback program. I know a couple other people have, but I don't think she specifically sponsored a gun buyback. I do think Second Amendment rights are going to be one of the big things that come up whenever people especially for issue dependent voters, that's going to be one of the hot topics. And I'll be honest, Trump isn't that great on guns at all. He's not very good at protecting the Second Amendment.
It's not.
But if you were just a two-party, single-issue voter, then I could understand why you would make that choice. Not that I necessarily agree with it, but yeah, Trump isn't great at anything. I think that's a good way of saying it. I'm not a huge fan of the guy by any means. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Yeah, Quirt, all gun laws are an infringement. There's a very, sorry, what were you saying?
I feel that whole "there's no president" vibe going on with any of these people. But of course, there was no president vibe with Trump. Like when I woke up in the morning and found out that Trump was the president, that was a whole Fight Club situation in my head. Like is voting real? What just happened there? And then it's still, even to this day, like Trump.
Welcome back to the CNN Democratic presidential debate. It is time now for closing statements. You will each receive 1 minute. Mayor de Blasio, let's begin with you.
Thank you. For the last 3 years, we've watched Donald Trump pit working people against each other, black versus white, citizen versus immigrant. And why? So that the wealthy and the powerful
he won't be here.
represents can hold the American dream hostage from everyone else.
Least worse isn't the same as fantastic. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
If we're going to beat Donald Trump, this has to be a party that stands for something. This has to be the party of labor unions. This has to be the party of universal health care. This has to be the party that's not afraid to say out loud.
That's another one of my big things about Yang, is that he's not as crazy against guns, but he's not.
When we do that,
he's not good on the Second
Donald
Amendment.
Trump, right on cue, will call us socialists.
As a libertarian, it's hard to say that any Democrat
Donald,
is good.
You're the real socialist.
You hate
the
to pick
problem
sides.
is, it's socialism for the rich.
But evidently, we have cousins.
We, here in this
And he's a
country,
progressive
we don't have to
Republican.
take
That
it
is-
anymore.
that is a
we can
claim.
fight back. If you agree
That is a claim.
that we can stand up to Donald Trump and we can stand up to the wealthy, then go to taxthehell.com and join us so
See,
we
and
can
whereas
build
I'm
a
like,
country
everybody should be able to
that
own
puts
nuclear
working
weapons.
people first.
Recreational
Senator
nukes.
Bennett.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Recreational nukes for
What I want to
everybody.
say to all of you tonight is we have
Armed
been
society
here
is a
before
polite
as a country.
society.
We have faced challenges that we've actually
Yeah, he
even
keeps
forget
pausing
some
for
of
the
us
applause.
tonight,
It isn't coming.
how
I like
hard the
that.
people fought, how hard they worked, how hard they organized, the votes they had to take, the people they had to get to the polls to make this country more democratic, more fair, and more free. And now we have a person in the White House who has no appreciation of that history, who
Spurters
doesn't
coming
believe
straight
in the
out.
rule of law, who doesn't believe in the independence of the judiciary, who doesn't believe that climate change is real. I think that we have an incredible opportunity in front of us, all of us, to come together just as our parents and grandparents did before them and face challenges even harder than the ones that we face. But the only way we're going to be able to do it is to put the divisive politics of Donald Trump behind us and the divisive politics of the last 10 years behind us. We need to come together,
Divisive.
united
Interesting
against a
pronunciation.
broken Washington, make Donald Trump a one-term president, and begin to govern this country again for our kids and our grandkids.
David Jones, any
who
good libertarian
cannot do
candidates
it
that have a
for
chance of
themselves.
winning?
We have to do it for them. Please
no.
join me at
But
michaelbennett.com.
there's Adam
Thanks
Kokesh
for
isn't
being here
terrible.
tonight.
Governor Inslee.
He's a character.
For decades, we
Is
have
he doing
kicked
a
the
thing?
can down
He's doing
the
a
road
thing.
on climate change. And
He's-
now under Donald Trump, we face a looming catastrophe. But it is not too
Of course
late.
not winning. No, I
We
wouldn't
have
say that any of them
one
are
last
amazing.
chance. And when you have one chance in life, you
Kokesh
take it.
isn't terrible.
Think about this.
Not
Literally,
great,
the
but-
survival of humanity on this planet.
Berman
this
Supreme
nation as
2020,
know it,
there we
is
go,
in the
libertarian
hands
ticket.
Of the next president.
Oh, man.
And we have to have a leader who will do what is necessary to save us. And that
Constitution is the
includes
closest
making
thing to
this the
liberty we
top
are going to get.
priority
I would
of
argue
the
that a
next
voluntary
presidency.
society is
And I alone on this
theoretically the
panel
closest to liberty we can
making a
possibly get.
commitment
But
that this will be the organizing principle
and I mean,
of
if
my
you
administration,
were to
not
put
the
it in
first day,
practice,
but every day. And if you share my view of the urgency of this matter, I hope you'll join me. Because we
I
are
was
up against
libertarian, but there
powerful
wasn't enough
special
support.
fossil
Yeah,
fuel
I'm-
interests, and it is time to stand up
I call myself
on
a
our legs
philosophical
and
libertarian
confront
just
the
because I
fossil
don't
fuel
work with the
special
party that
interests.
much.
Because that is our salvation, what it depends upon. So I hope you will consider going to jansley.com and joining this effort. And I will close with this. I
Mandel,
am
if you want to
confident
listen to the debate
and
uninterrupted,
optimistic
you can go to
tonight, even in
CNN.com.
the face of this difficulty. Because I know we can build a clean
I just
energy
don't
economy.
care about Inslee
I
or de
know
Blasio
we
or any
can
of these
save
guys.
our
I don't.
children and our grandchildren.
They're going to be
I
gone
know that
in a
we
month or 2 months,
can
whenever the
defeat
next
climate
debate is.
change,
I think it's
and we
September.
will defeat
So
They're
Donald
not getting
Trump.
enough funding.
This is
no, they're not
our
getting the funding. They're
moral
not getting the votes.
responsibility,
They'll be gone.
and we will fulfill it. Thank you very much.
Senator Gillibrand.
So will she. Most likely.
Donald
She
Trump
might
has
barely
really
make it.
torn apart the
But I
moral
doubt it.
fabric of this country,
Highly doubt it.
dividing us on every racial line, every religious line,
Mommy.
every socioeconomic line he can find. I'm running for
Caleb back?
president because I want to
Yeah,
help
this
people.
comment right here.
And I actually have the
where is it?
experience.
I'll do it.
and the
You said
ability
left
to do
Libertarian
that.
Party for the
I brought
Johnson Weld
Congress
campaign.
together and
Yeah.
actually made a difference in people's lives.
AM, thanks for the stream. Enjoyed the commentary.
I
Hey,
also
thanks for
know how
coming
to
out,
beat
man.
Donald Trump.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
He has broken his promises to the American people.
Because you went up
I've
there.
taken this fight directly to his backyard in Michigan and
Night,
Ohio
Mary, got
and
some pretzels.
Pennsylvania, and I'll go to all the places in this country. I will fight for your family. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't
Just
matter
try not to crunch them
where
like
you
right into the
live.
microphone.
It
That's all.
doesn't matter who you love.
Yeah.
Because that's my responsibility. And I've done this before. I started out in a 2-to-1 Republican district. I won it twice. I've never lost an election since. And I not only bring people together electorally, but also legislatively.
Hey, yes,
I get things done. So we need a president
Is
who's
Gillibrand
not afraid
anti-gun?
of the big challenges.
I don't know her
of the
specific
big
policy off
fights.
the top of my head.
There is no false choice. We don't need a liberal or progressive with big ideas, or we don't need a moderate who can win back Trump, Obama voters.
I just don't want to. I just don't want to
need someone who can
misquote.
do
I don't
both.
know exactly
And
what
that's
her
who I am.
gun
Please go
policy
to
is. So.
KirstenGillibrand.com so I can make the next debate stage.
Congresswoman Gabbard.
See, she's still trying to make the debate stage.
Thank you. You know, Donald Trump and warmongering politicians in Washington have failed us. They continue to escalate tensions with other nuclear-armed countries like Russia and China and North Korea, starting a new Cold War, pushing us closer and closer to the brink of nuclear catastrophe. Now, as we stand here tonight, there are thousands of nuclear missiles pointed at us. And if we were to get an attack right here tonight, we would have 30
She's
minutes.
fear-mongering.
30 minutes before we were hit. And you would receive an alert like the one we received in Hawaii last year that would say, incoming missile, seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. And you would see, as we did, as my loved ones in Hawaii did, there is no shelter. This is the warmongers' hoax. There is no shelter. It's all a lie. As president, I will end this insanity because it doesn't have to be this way. I will end these wasteful regime
Sad
change
story.
wars.
Literally
Work to end this new
shaking.
Cold War through the use of diplomacy to de-escalate
is she gonna
these tensions and
uninvent
take the
nuclear
trillions
weapons?
of dollars that we've been wasting on these wars and on these weapons and redirect those resources into serving the needs of our people right here at home. Things like health care for all, making sure everyone in this country has clean water to drink and clean air to breathe, investing in education,
Wait, is that
investing
all
in
she
our
does is
infrastructure.
Democrat
The
presidential
needs are
debate?
great. As your president, I will put your interests above all
Candidate?
else.
Secretary Castro.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the anti-war stuff.
Thank you to you, Jake, Dana, and to Don, and to everybody here, and to those watching. You know, this election is all about what kind of nation we're going to become. You and I, we stand on the shoulders of folks who have made beds and made sacrifices, people that fought in wars and fought discrimination, folks that picked crops and stood in picket lines, and they helped build the wonderful nation that we live in today. Donald Trump has not been bashful in his cruelty, and I'm not going to be bashful in my common sense and compassion. I believe that we need leadership that understands that we need to move forward as one nation with one destiny. And our destiny in the years to come is to be the smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation on earth. If you want to help me build that America for the future, I hope you'll go to JulianCastro.com and on January 20th, 2021, we'll say together, adios to Donald Trump.
He did the one Spanish word, I'll take it. It wasn't a full Spanish speaking, but I'll take it.
Talking about after the last debate, it's not the fact that I'm somehow number 4 on the stage in national polling. It was the fact that I wasn't wearing a tie.
What?
Instead of talking about automation in our future, including the fact that we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs, hundreds of thousands right here in Michigan, we're up here with makeup on our faces and our rehearsed attack lines, playing roles in this reality TV show. It's one reason why we elected a reality TV star as our president. We need to be laser focused on solving the real challenges of today, like the fact that the most common jobs in America may not exist in a decade, or that most Americans cannot pay their bills. My flagship proposal, the Freedom Dividend, would put $1,000 a month into the hands of every American adult, be a game changer for millions of American families. If you care more about your family and your kids than my neckwear, enter your zip code at yang2020.com and see what $1,000 a month would mean to your community. I have done the math. It's not left. It's not right. It's forward. And that is how we're going to beat Donald Trump in 2020.
That $1,000 sounding good.
Senator Booker.
Get those Yang bucks.
Thank you.
I've been wanting to build an SBR.
First, I just want to give a lot of thanks to the city of Detroit.
I can't.
They're hosting us today, and one of the reasons I respect this city is because it has the kind of defiant love that I find in many American cities, including the city of Newark. And Detroit is turning around, and Newark is turning around because we let no one divide us, no one demean or degrade us or underestimate our worth. We pulled together and fought a common purpose and common cause. That's the history of this city. My mom is sitting there, who was born in the city of Detroit, born to a guy that was a UAW worker, my grandfather, who pulled his family out
outgoing
of poverty
bot, it's a joke,
in the Depression. My grandmother joined him. She was really entrepreneurial, opened a pool hall and a laundromat right here in this city. That is the American dream, and so many of us have stories like that. But the dream of this country is under threat right now. Well, my mom's generation, 95% of baby boomers did better than their parents.
The size of a man.
Just a coin toss for millennials. We have a real crises in our country, and the crisis is Donald Trump, but not only Donald Trump. I have a frustration that sometimes people are saying the only thing they want is to beat Donald Trump. Well, that is the floor and not the ceiling. The way we beat Donald Trump is not just focusing
Giant
on
Meteor
him. He
2020.
wants to take all
I love
the
that comment.
oxygen out of the room. It's when we start focusing on each other and understanding that our common bonds and our common purpose to address our common pain is what has saved us before. It's what's going to save us now. That is the kind of leader that I am going to be as President of the United States, not just uniting the Democratic Party, but making sure that we put more indivisible back into this one nation under God. And if you believe like I do, please go to CoryBooker.com and join the mission.
Everybody's selling their Patreon.
Senator Harris.
Also, Liberty.
So in my background as Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks who preyed on the homeowners. many of whom lost their homes and were
I
never
cannot
able to buy
stand
them.
her. I'm sorry.
I've taken on the for-profit colleges who preyed on students, put them out of business.
I cannot sit
I've
here and
preyed on
listen to someone
transnational
talk like
criminal
I'm for the
organizations that have
people
preyed on
while
women and
she just
children.
screwed all
And
of
I will tell
California
you,
as the DA for
we have a
years.
predator living in the White House.
Years.
And I'm going to tell
She
you
put
something.
innocent people in jail.
Trump
She
has
ruined
predatory
people's
nature
lives. Ugh.
and predatory instincts.
Richard, take it easy, man.
And the thing about predators is this.
Say it.
By their very nature, they prey on people they perceive to be weak. They prey on people they perceive to be vulnerable.
They're here
They
for your
prey on
commentary,
people who are in need of help, often desperate for help. And predators are cowards. What we need is someone who is going to be on that debate stage with Donald Trump and defeat him by being able to prosecute the case against 4 more years. And let me tell you, we've got a long rap sheet. We're looking at
Yeah, she's
someone who
good at
passed
putting
a
people in
tax bill
jail over
benefiting
nothing.
the top 1% and the biggest corporations in this country when he said he would help working families. We've got a person
saying
who has
maybe
put
she's a
babies
bad
in
person?
cages and
Oh, I'm
separated
saying she
children
is a
from
bad
their
person,
parents.
but-
We have someone who passed a so-called
A lot of
trade policy that
politicians
was
are.
trade policy by tweet and has resulted in a tax on American families.
That was a year ago.
So we must
That was a year ago.
defeat him and then, in turning the page, write the next
think where you were
chapter
a year ago.
for our country, and that has to
Can't
be
talk about what you said in the
written in a
past.
way that recognizes what wakes people up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that is my agenda, the 3 a.m.
Oh,
agenda
here we
that is
go.
focused on getting folks the jobs they
3
need,
a.m.
getting
agenda.
their children the education they need, making sure they have the health care they need, and the
Wasn't that
future
the
they
thing, like,
deserve.
the
So
last
please join me
election
at
where it's like that
kamalaharris.org, and I
phone
thank you
rings?
for your time.
Vice President Biden.
Uh-oh, here he goes. He's the last one.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I want to see what,
Thank you,
how
Mr.
he
Mayor,
tries to
for
save this.
Detroit hosting this. Look, I've said it many times, and I think everyone agrees with this. We're in a battle for the soul of America. This is the most consequential election any one of you, no matter how old or young you are, has ever participated.
So of the last 20.
4 more years of
I
Donald
laugh
Trump
at-
will go down as an aberration. Hard to overcome the damage he's done,
all
but we can
matters.
overcome it.
This all matters.
8 more years
It's
of
gonna
Donald
change
Trump
things.
will change America in a fundamental way. The America we know
If
will
you
no
don't vote
longer
harder,
exist.
it's going to change things.
Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. We have to let them know
No.
who
So
we are. We choose science over fiction. We choose hope over fear. We choose unity over division.
There was a
And
lot
we
of fear
choose-
today,
We
just
choose
saying.
the idea that
And a lot of
we can,
division.
as Americans, when we act together, do anything.
more years?
This is the
Say
United
8 more years?
States of America.
8 more years.
We've
I
acted
thought I
together.
heard it, but
We
I
have
thought
never,
it was just me.
never,
King
never
Trump,
been
8
unable
more
to
years.
overcome whatever the problem was.
I've
If
been
you agree
drinking
with
wine.
me, go to Joe 30330 and help me in this fight.
What's he doing,
Thank
Matt?
you very much.
3-0.
I just saw like all the triangles and stuff appear
Appreciate
on
it.
my.
And stay with CNN for special coverage of tonight's debate.
All right.
Anderson Cooper and
That
Chris Cuomo are
is
coming up.
enough of
That
that.
begins right now.
All of that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm not going to stick around. Yeah. So
Okay, how else could we ever watch a debate
No,
ever?
I wouldn't watch this shit
I don't
ever.
watch debates. Like, I don't, because I get angry. But watching it with you, Christian, and all the comments, it brings this like beautiful.
Oh, he's bigger.
Yeah,
He
no,
got
it's fine.
big.
He's Celebrity After Dark. He's allowed to be bigger. But watching it with everyone and having just the feedback and just having that constant, just I don't know, it works for me. Thanks.
It does. I would no way watch
No,
this.
nope,
Like,
nope.
No, I'm going straight to PewDiePie.
Yeah.
We're watching Minecraft
Yeah.
gameplay videos.
Yes, definitely. So, Christian, are you going to do a wrap up thing then for Saturday night?
Yeah.
Then? Like a review of the whole debate thing?
yeah, so I'll be going back over the footage for the rest of this week and listening to all of it again, ripped. And Saturday, I'll have a list put together, and we'll be talking about some big key points to take away from the debate. Saturday, 9 p.m. It'll just be like a podcast, just me. So these guys are also doing a show on these guys. There we go on Friday nights, right?
These guys.
Yeah. So
These two crazy people right here drinking wine.
make sure
I
you
mean,
check out LLN. And I just want to make sure everybody's aware of this. If you're still around, thanks for coming. But I am a libertarian, so if you want to come and have a discussion, that's why I do a live show, because I like talking to people.
And he's good at it.
Come and have a discussion with him.
So that's.
If you want to talk about your childhood fears, then come to Liberty Late Night.
Yeah. We call them the wholesome stream, and I'm the nerd, so that's how this works.
Yeah.
So.
That's why we hang out with you. It's like I want to learn shit.
Nerd. I love that shit. Oh my gosh. Christian, you got this up and running and making
somehow
it
fucking
happen.
powed it.
You made it happen. Thank you so much. And really though, like your commentary on it,
Views on illegal immigrants.
the way like you're sitting there just like,
What do you mean illegal?
lies, they're lying. Frustrated.
That's great.
It was so fun to watch you have your reactions.
But it's just, especially when Kamala Harris gets up there, she just loves to lie, and so I just can't.
Yeah.
I try to be very, collected about it all, but when she just gets up there and just starts just lying about everything, I can't help but get frustrated, because there are a lot of people who don't do any background research, and so all they will see is this debate, and they'll think, well, Kamala Harris has got all these great points, even though they're not. They're none of them are true. Yeah, they're lies.
And the thing is that in the beginning it was her and Biden and maybe one or two other people coming in the very beginning of the debate, and they were just like going at each other. And then someone called her out. It was great. Like people calling her out on her bullshit. And she's like, well, we need to focus on that.
How about that Biden clapback, though? That was phenomenal against Gillibrand. Or Gillibrand, however you pronounce it. The lady who won't be in the next debate. That was, he just like, oh, man. Got her so good. That made the whole thing worth it for me, just for that one thing.
Yeah.
There's going to be some good memes out of this. You guys check Reddit, check Facebook, check Instagram. There's going to be good memes from this. So 2019,
the
year of the clapback. Yeah.
Classic Film Channel just said I just wish the media and politicians were more honest. The media, at least, like it's terrible. You watch it and it's just whatever they want to be shared.
Their narrative.
Yeah, their narrative. It is. It's awful. Yep. This has been so much fun, Christian.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys were here. Thanks again to you guys, David and Mary, over at Liberty Late Night. First day was rough, and we divorced Facebook over it. But YouTube has the common sense to know what fair use is. And I cannot believe I said this, but YouTube's copyright policy is somehow better than Facebook's. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Seriously amazing. Like with all the shit going on around YouTube's copyright and copy strikes and I guess ad revenue. Maybe you wouldn't be getting ad revenue off
It's
this
okay. You'll
if it was a thing.
Yeah.
But at least they'd let us do our show.
Right, just
Exactly.
to hang out and do the thing.
So
Facebook was like, nope, shut down right now. It's like you didn't even ask me or even look into it.
Well, bitch. That's what Mark Zuckerberg is.
Yeah, no joke. Like I said though, I'm gonna save most of my analysis for after I have a chance to look through everything, and I'm gonna make
until we go away.
No. It'll be Saturday. It won't be today. So Saturday 9 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube, and you guys are Friday 9 p.m. Eastern also on YouTube. You guys gonna stream on YouTube?
Yeah, no, we're going Facebook because that's where we live.
Okay.
Wait, no.
So Facebook.
Can we? Are you
I'll
allowed
make
back?
It happen.
Yeah.
We'll let you back.
I streamed this morning.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, from work.
Because we got our pee smashed.
Yeah.
For yesterday,
Yeah,
they were
it was
mad.
just for the night. They let me stream again.
Oh, okay.
So over at Facebook, Liberty Late Night, go ahead and check them out. Just search that; it'll come up. Great show. So.
Oh. We are family.
Exactly. Right.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, unless you guys in the comments have any questions or concerns or something that warrants it, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. So I'll give you guys, I don't know, maybe a minute to write it all out. Huh?
Fucking hammered.
Ask Christian.
Yeah, you guys killed that box wine. I'm over here drinking my water and Nightmare emerged.
Yeah. Oh, what? Someone's like, that girl in the middle's high. I'm like, I am not high.
We're drunks.
I am drunk. I wish I was high. I mean, for legal reasons, that's a joke. Yeah, but it's a tiny box of wine. It's tiny. Yeah. I love you guys. Thanks for hanging out.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I appreciate all you guys for coming out. Who's the LLN guest this Friday? That's right. I'm a terrible host. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. This was just a Democratic thing. It is Connor Boyack.
Connor Boyack.
Tuttle Twins, author.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any kids and you like the idea of some awesome reading for your kids, or even if you're an adult and you like kids' books, you guys should go ahead and check them out because they're going to have a great interview. I will be there in the comments watching it. I hope you guys are there too.
You.
So, yeah.
I'm excited.
I think that's it. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your night, I suppose. So take it easy.
Good night.
Good night.